Papa Meat channel. How you doing? How you doing? Welcome back to the Papa Meat channel. How you doing? How you doing? Come on and sit on down because we're talking about something that's Okay. Today we're going to be talking about the most haunted locations in America. Now, a lot of these locations I've heard of before as well, but I've never actually dove into some of these. Like some of these we're going to be talking about have movies based around them or whatever. But I was actually curious to see some of the most haunted places in America. I mean, I believe in ghosts.
Cringe.
I know. All the scientists, all the elite, very, very smart people who watch this channel and
leave wonderful comments
are going to say, Hunter, what are you talking about? I've come in contact with a few ghosts myself, Nick.
Yeah, when? When? What ghost?
Well, I couldn't see him or anything, but it was, but let me know. I'll say this is that I hate going into a building and feeling that little, what did you just experience a ghost? He just shivered. You just shivered. Did you just experience a ghost?
I have to pee.
You have to pee? Well, you better hold it. So just know that I've had my own little run-in with ghosts laying down and my friend, it kind of sounds like I'm having gay sex with my friend, laying down, had sleepovers with my buddies, and then you hear something creak. Oh, what? And I hate when people are like, it's just the house settling. Really, dude? It's a 23-year-old house. It's just settling. The tectonic plates are shifting. If it was like a house from the 1800s, I'd be like, sure.
What if the house is built on burial grounds? And
no, go ahead and say Indian burial grounds, dude. What, Indian burial grounds? That's offensive, dick. All right, first up, we have Amityville. We want to start with some of the heavy hitters so that people can say, I know that. Amityville is like the most popular haunted house, and I think it's even recorded to be the most haunted house ever, which I don't know how you clarify the most haunted, which I'm guessing they just mean like the most documented hauntings. Notorious haunted house, whatever. It started its legend in Amityville, New York on November 13th, 1974, when 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr., good guy, shot and killed 6 members of his family. Jumped the gun on that one a little bit. But this included his mother, father, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers. Got the whole goddamn cheaper by the dozen family in there, don't they? Armed with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, DeFeo shot his family members as they slept. How do they all stay asleep? Oh, it's a big house. Or do you think he like put a pillow over it? You ever played like Max Payne 3? There's like a level where he puts a plastic bottle over the tip of his gun as a silencer, and I'm like, would that work?
I think Mythbusters did that.
They said it didn't work. It's a cool idea, at least. Just like a thing of Mountain Dew. He shot most of them in the head and a few of them in the back. That seems cool. Even from a guy who's possessed or something, just shoot all of them in the head. If you're gonna, come on.
I think the ones he hated the most, he shot in the back.
Oh, he definitely shot his family in the back. Dad's like, oh, he probably take a couple shots in the back to kill somebody. Originally, DeFeo blamed the murders on a mob hitman. It was the Italians that killed my family. The Italians. But as time passed, Ronaldo DeFeo confessed to the murders himself. DeFeo told investigators that he heard voices urging him to kill his family. I was hoping my life would go in this trajectory, dude. That angels or demons would tell me. The angels came and told me to shoot my dad 3 times in the back. This is the day after your sister, like, I don't know, broke your sick Lego collection. Like, I just got the Eye of Sauron Lego set. She broke it. Angels told me to kill her, told me to throw her down the well. I don't know. Way back in the 70s, people got to be way more susceptible to being like, what? Angels told you to do this? Not a bad fall plan. But later, during the trial, he admitted to being drunk and high on heroin, and his parents were abusive. Okay, there it is. The little angel, the little demon on my shoulder was a bag of H. Heroin. Oh, he's drunk and he's high on heroin. All right, I'll be honest. I had a couple brewskis, a couple syringes of heroin, and my dad hit me with a belt. What am I supposed to do? Wait! Today we want to thank today's partner, Bad Dragon. If you've been a fan of this channel, then you know that Bad Dragon is a permanent fixture on this channel. They have supported us time and time again, and we want to give you the little ins and outs on what they provide. Let's say you're trying to spice things up a little bit. Maybe you want to spice up they mans. Maybe you want to spice up they womans a little bit, right? Maybe you just want to spice up yourself. Well, then Bad Dragon may be the perfect fit for you. And by fit, I mean you're going to shove things inside you, and it's going to make you feel real good, real good. Or you're going to shove things inside something else. It doesn't matter. All I know is Bad Dragon's products are expertly made. They're handcrafted. They're beautiful. And it's some of the best quality control I've ever seen. We've been to their facility. We've seen how their workers operate. It's such a positive, amazing experience. And it reflects so much in the product itself. And I could not recommend them enough. So please go check out Bad Dragon if you're trying to spice things up for yourself or in the bedroom. And be sure you tell them Papa Meat Pete sent you. So thank you, Bad Dragon, for sponsoring this video, and back to the video. DeVeo was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in prison. Never understood the consecutive life sentences.
It's in case you're immortal.
Well, especially if he comes back and maybe possesses someone, and they're like, we know it's the ghost of DeFeo. Get him in prison. He's like, no! In the years since his claim of hearing voices, he has admitted to the lie, claiming, quote, there was no demon. You know who the demon is? I am the demon. To be fair, that does sound like something a demon would say.
He's just admitting that there is a demon.
No, there is no demon. I'm the fucking demon. And they're just like, what? He's like, no, the entire altercation likely stemmed from DeFeo's theft of $20,000 from his grandfather's car dealership. Fuck this kid. He was tasked with depositing money to the bank, but ultimately had a friend stage the robbery. His father eventually grew suspicious and questioned him, earning a death threat that his son followed up on. So literally his dad was like, did you take $20,000 from Pop Pop at his Toyota Camry dealership? And he's like, no, Dad, I'll fucking slice your throat. He's like, okay, come on, man. And he's like, I'm just like drunk. He's like, I'm gonna get high on heroin and kill my dad. To be fair, though, yeah, I hate to say this, Nick. I hate to say this. If I was already drunk and high on heroin and I was planning on killing my dad, I'd probably just follow through with the whole family.
Oof. Fuck, dude.
Come on, man. If you're going down with one ship, are you not going to just go down with them all?
But he didn't kill himself either. That includes you. If you're going to kill your whole family, kill yourself.
I'm not so self-centered, Nick. I don't think I'm my family. But a year after the murders, George and Kathy Lutz bought the Amityville home, and they abandoned the property only 28 days after purchasing it. They were in such a hurry, they reportedly left all of their personal belongings behind. I like that. Coming in and you're just like, what happened? Like the idea. I was going to speculate. It's like, do you think a lot of the horror movie tropes, haunted house tropes today stem from the Amityville house? But there's haunted house fucking movies before the 70s. House on Haunted Hill.
Maybe they were copying.
That's what I'm wondering is the Lutzes were like, hey, let's buy this house where all these that heroin addict killed that Toyota dealership owner, and we'll just say that it's haunted and we'll make a killing off of it.
Oh, you know what? They did buy it 1 year afterwards.
A year after the murders? Come on, dude. Usually in movies, the haunted house things like the old DeFonte house up on 12th Street, that thing's been empty for 10 years or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. And then you walk in, there's sheets over everything. You whip on the big dust. A year afterwards? Come on. Come on. Yeah, right. They claimed that demons drove them out. What if they just found like his heroin and they were just high? They were too embarrassed to, yeah, it's demons. I swear to God. And they offered up tales of green slime in the walls, fly infestations, mysterious cold spots, a red room, and strange voices in the night. George Lutz reported waking up at 3:15 every night, which is the approximate time of the DeFeo murders, which 3:15 is very close to 3:30, which is the demonic witching hour. Kind of ties in a little bit. He also claimed to hear voices urging him to get out and saw a face in the fireplace with red, glowing eyes. Kathy Lutz reported feeling as if she was being embraced by an unseen force and levitating off the bed. Jesus Christ, Kathy, goddamn. She's like, something's holding me and I'm flying. Can you imagine her around she's like laying in the house. She's like, like flying around the house. George! Oh my God, my wife, I just saw a Apache man's face in the fireplace and I don't even know what the hell's happening here. The youngest child, Missy, spoke to her imaginary friend Jody, who appeared as a demonic pig with red glowing eyes. Okay, first off, stop saying glowing red fucking eyes, dude. The more people are like, and it had glowing red eyes. That's why I'm like, no, it didn't. You're lying.
Why?
She had me on imaginary friend who is a demonic pig named Jody. Are you fucking kidding me? That's creepy. You ever have a younger sibling, or I had a buddy who had a brother who used to like point up at their kitchen ceiling. He'd clap. And we'd be like, dude, stop. What are you looking at? And he's like, my friend. That kind of I hate that. I don't give a fuck if you're a believer or not. A little kid, like, he's like, we're going to our hiding place. Like that. Orphanage.
Jesus.
I don't give a fuck. If my child did that, fostering him up. Send him up the hill to the orphanage, dude. He can clap up there. All the kids who are cool, who aren't fucking psychopaths with imaginary friends, you get to stay. Not you, little Missy. This kid's name. The Lutz family supposedly hired Father Pecarero to bless the home. He went on to say that he was told to, quote, get out. By an invisible voice and was slapped. Get out of here, you son of a bitch, and just slaps him in the face. He's like, the Lord has abandoned this home. And a man named William Weber, who was DeFeo's lawyer, admitted to fabricating the story with George Lutz over a bottle of wine. But a polygraph taken by Lutz in 2000 revealed that he wasn't lying. Who's telling the truth? I don't know.
Polygraphs are 100% truthful.
Polygraphs are very unreliable, except when you ask me how big my hog is. And I say, very big. And it does, and I'm like, no, it's huge. A seance was held at the house in 1976 where parapsychologists, psychics, and noted demonologists Lorraine and Ed Warren would appear. Yes, the people from The Conjuring. I was wondering how long it'd take till they showed up, those old fucks. I wish movies would cast, we were talking about this the other night, cast more freaks. Lorraine and Ed Warren were tough on the eyes. Greasy, old, like, German couple. I'm pretty sure, something like that. Yikes. Instead, you got Hottie McGee and Hottie Magoo over there playing, making a Conjuring in my pants. Okay. That was not a good joke. Which, when they all, this fucking, I guess, like, Avengers team of the paranormal showed up, and nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. And at 3 a.m. in the sewing room, which was said to have the worst reputation, nothing happened in there either. Like, the sewing room was apparently the place where it was the most haunted. Nothing happened. The psychic did say this, though. This is as close to hell as I want to get. Which feels kind of weird, because it's like, if nothing happened, what does that mean? The drive up here in upstate New York was truly devious.
Maybe he was being sarcastic.
Yeah, oh, this is as close to hell as I want to get. What if there's just like a Puerto Rican guy walking around the house? Oh my God. The 70s. Jesus Christ, the help. The house still stands to this day with no further incidents happening, which is very disappointing. How the fuck can that be the most haunted? That's the most haunted place, or supposedly the most haunted place? Which also, it kind of reads, in my opinion, that the guy who killed his family, DeFeo, seems like he killed them, and then the Lutzes moved in, and they were haunted by DeFeo's family.
I agree.
Even if he's like, I lied about the whole thing, maybe he inadvertently caused ghosts to spook the house.
Yeah, the people that he murdered are haunting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. All right. Oh, okay. The Lutz family experiences were later documented in Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, which became a bestseller and was adapted into a film in 1979, which I will say, Amityville 3D was the first horror film I ever watched, and I have a poster of it in my studio. At the end of that movie, a weird sewer goblin pops out, burns a guy's face, and drags him into a watery portal, and the house fucking, like, explodes. He, like, freezes up and explodes, and it scared the shit out of me when I was younger.
Do you want to watch an even scarier version of Amityville Horror?
You talk about the one where I get all fucking bricked up watching Ryan Gosling chop wood.
Oh, Ryan Gosling's in it?
He's the dad. He's the dad in the 2005 one, or like the 2006. When was that remake?
2004.
I'm gonna say 2000. I'm gonna say 2006. Amityville 2005. Fuck. So close. All right, well, fuck. Next up, we have East Maritello Fort in Key West, Florida. It's not necessarily a place, it's more of a doll, but it's more so the doll. Wherever the doll is, it's haunted, so we went ahead and included it in because it's a very notorious doll, which the doll is called Robert. Robert the fucking doll. Manufactured by the Steiff Company of Germany around the 1900s. The doll was given to a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, which people usually just called him Gene. Should have called him Bob. I love when guys are called Bob. There's no name you can age him better to than Bob. Robert when you're younger, then you're Bob. Bob is such a good old person name.
I feel like it's so generic.
Test the guy. Your name's Nick, dude.
What?
So I mean, Nicks I know in my fucking life. Unbelievable, man. The doll was given by his family's Bahamian servant. The Bahamian servant was rumored to be skilled in voodoo and black magic. That sounds racist. He's like, is the doll, little boy? Oi! The Bahamian servant went, Oi, Gene, take this little doll and put it in your knapsack now. Going to be your best friend, you hear? And Gene's dad was like, my God, the help knows voodoo and black magic. What cost did you bring upon the doll, servant? Upon receiving him, Gene named the doll after himself, calling him Robert, which is one of the creepiest things I've ever heard. Imagine getting a doll and you're just like, me. Hello, my doll's name's Hunter. And your parents aren't like, you're not a psychopath. You're my beautiful boy. There's no way. This thing is freaking out. My screen's freaking out.
Is that Robert?
It could be. Jesus Christ, it's like, give me a fucking epilepsy attack over here. Look at this. Robert the doll is approximately 40 inches tall and is stuffed with wood and wool. He is dressed in a sailor suit that is believed to have belonged to Gene as a child. Once again, gets even fucking creepier. You can have him wear my little sailor suit. This used to be mine, Robert. The doll is just like, kill me. Put me in a wood chipper immediately. The doll's face is painted with a disturbing, almost human-like expression. He has large, beady eyes, a painted-on smile, and is holding some kind of weird stuffed toy lion or dog. Gene became extremely attached to Robert, treating him as a companion and a confidant. Kids just treat me the fuck out. I always hate when kids are just like, I tell him my secrets. You ever hear kids say that? I had cousins who were much younger than me. He had like a little doll too, and he'd be like, I tell him my secrets. And I'd be like, what secrets could you possibly have? Wouldn't be a secret if I told you. And they always drop some shit like that. You're like, holy shit. It is said that Gene would often blame mishaps on the doll, saying, Robert did it. Gene's parents would often find his toys mutilated or destroyed. Rooms would be found in disarray, with furniture overturned and belongings scattered. Gene would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, claiming that Robert was moving around his room or trying to harm him. Doesn't really sound like a friend to me, dude. Robert keeps giving me Charlie horses. Robert keeps playing tap out with me. He's just like blacked out on the floor. Robert suplexed him into the fucking ground. He also blamed the doll for causing him to have terrifying nightmares and sleep disturbances. And he believed that the doll had a malevolent influence and could cause physical harm to him indirectly.
So that's like, I think like he tripped. Robert did it. Robert did it.
Be honest, if you were the parent of Gene, how much of this do you put up with?
Oh, I get rid of the doll.
That's what I don't understand is that's the obvious. Well, you know what he's probably doing? No, bring him back. He's my best friend. It seems so far like a child who is desperately wanting attention from his family. And the only person to give him any kind of attention or love is the fucking Bahamian servant. He sees him like crying. He's like, hey, I wish I had from my dad never wants to hang out with me. He's like, don't worry, little boy Gene. Wipe your tears. I give you a new friend.
His name is Robert, like you.
His name going to be Robert, like you. Thank you, Bahamian servant.
Cut your hand.
All right, strangle this chicken to death and cut your hand and put it into the bowl.
You want Robert to live, right?
Do you want Robert to live or do you want to keep crying? He's like slicing up it. Like, Jesus Christ. The Otto family and their servants reported hearing Gene having conversations with the doll. And sometimes the doll would respond in a different, deeper voice. Robert, do you think I'm pretty? Oh, yes. The Bahamian servant's like, what kind of gift did I give to this child? Or if you're the dad and you're like reading the paper, Robert, I don't know if I should look at that. Come on, Gene. It's not a big deal. The dad's like, come on, Gene. Robert, I don't know if I should look at that. It's not a big deal. Turns the paper.
Do you think that's what inspired The Shining? Come on.
Oh, probably. Red rum, whatever. There's like a lot of tropes of that kind of stuff, or like kids being like, I don't know. Here you go. There were also claims of Robert changing expressions and moving independently. That didn't happen. That's like some slappy goosebump shit. Gene's parents and later his wife Anne noted that Gene's behavior would change dramatically when he was around the doll. How long did he have this doll for? How old was he when he got married? He has to be an adult, right? My best man's gonna give you a kiss, honey. Takes the doll and puts it to his face. In her ear, he's just like, don't forget it's for both of us here. And she's like, okay, thank God you're rich, or else I wouldn't fucking be here. So yeah, Gene's behavior would change dramatically when he was around the doll. He would become more agitated, irritable, and at times even aggressive. Seems like he kind of has a fuck relationship with the doll.
He would hit Anne and then blame it on Robert.
Yeah, there.
Robert, why would you do that?
Yeah, Gene punches her as hard as he can in the chest. Gene gives her a fucking dead leg. She's like, what the fuck, Gene? He's like, oh, it wasn't me. It was Robert. Robert, you gave me so much trouble. It's like laying on the floor or whatever. He's like wrapping like chains around his like wrist and shit. And he's like, what are you going to make me do, Robert? Even as an adult, Gene continued to believe in Robert's supernatural abilities. Gene's a fucking psychopath. He's scaring the shit out of me. When he and his wife Anne moved back into the family home, Gene placed Robert in a room of his own, often referring to it as Robert's room. Seems like a guy back in the day, like way back in the day, he's like, that's like his jack-off room. You don't want to go in Robert's room. No matter what you do, don't go in there. Respect his privacy, Anne. Anne reportedly experienced the same unsettling phenomena and grew to fear the doll, insisting it be locked away. Despite her efforts, Gene would often find ways to retrieve the doll and keep it close. If I was the wife, I'd be like, put the fucking doll up, dude. He's got to be mentally gone. He's like, he told me he was scared in there. I had to come get him. He told me he was scared. Like, you're 43 years old. You need to fucking worth giving it away. After Gene's death in 1974, the house was sold, and the new owners reported strange occurrences, such as the doll moving to different rooms, giggling, and unsettling accidents happened around the house. Visitors reported feeling uneasy in Robert's presence, and many claimed that the doll's expressions changed in response to things being said around him. That's so crazy. After he's dead, they still just have the fucking doll out and about. It like like guests are around. They're like, hey, can you put up the fucking Victorian, like weird voodoo doll, please? And they're just like, we can't. It's in the will. Jean's ghost is here haunting us. We can't do it. After changing hands a few times, Robert was donated to the Fort East Martello Museum with claims of him moving about. Cameras and electronics devices supposedly misbehave around him, so we unfortunately don't have any footage of Robert moving. Damn, I really thought that we were going to see a puppet move. Oh my God, wait, we do have one caught on camera from Jonathan's Other Adventures. Thank you, Jonathan. So I went to Key West, Florida in 2018 to meet Robert the doll. After I viewed my video footage, I was shocked to see that Robert had moved his foot all by himself. What? As well as captured a ghostly orb next to his arm. So I'm showing you guys what I've captured. Here's the footage. That is a creepy fucking doll, though, if I'm being honest. It's even creepier knowing that like a Bahamian servant was just like, I got this for you. Are those feet? That's its feet? The boy's got some club feet, dude. He's got some fucking like elephant feet.
Jesus.
He said there was an orb by his arm, right? Oh, right there. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Did you see it? On the left side of the door frame.
Gene definitely had to fuck Robert once, right?
Okay, good.
His watch this foot. Watch, it's the chair moves back and then forward. Whoa. It looks like his foot moved all by itself. Please tell me what you guys think. I think that the fucking chair moved back. Robert's legend continues to grow to this day. And it is said that anyone who disrespects a doll or takes his photo without his permission will be cursed. So hopefully none of you guys took a screenshot of my video or you're gonna be fucked. Technically we're cursed because we're technically capturing his deal. And my really sick Logitech monitor just spazzed out, or Samsung. Letters from previous visitors apologizing for their behavior and asking for Robert's forgiveness are displayed near his case, often recounting misfortunes such as accidents, illnesses, and financial troubles that occurred after visiting him. Imagine they're just like, well, we're going bankrupt. Thanks for that, Robert. After he was moved during the last hurricane, he was tied down to the chair he sits in with a fishing line. After the change, movement stopped being reported, but comments that he twitches his head and swallows remains. The swallows one. Oh, Robert swallows. Yeah, not bad about that. Next up, we have the notorious Winchester House, which is just this story is very odd. If you guys haven't heard this one, it's pretty funny. The Winchester House is a sprawling mansion located in San Jose, California, known for its bizarre labyrinth-like design because the bitch who owned the place is crazier than all hell. She's crazier than a shithouse rat, which is one of my favorite expressions. My grandpa used to say it a lot. My mom used to say it a lot because they're white trash. It was the personal residence of Sarah Winchester, the widow of William Winchester, the heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. It's a gun company. Bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Sarah built the house after she inherited a vast fortune from her husband's death. Just like Bezos' wife did. Just like Bezos' wife. She also lost her daughter, Annie, just weeks after her birth due to malnutrition. Jesus Christ. The successive losses of her daughter and husband deeply affected Sarah, leading to prolonged periods of mourning and isolation.
Basically, that's what made her crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Extreme depression and trauma. She's probably just like, ugh. Well, especially like that far back, because this is like 1800s. You definitely would be like, oh, I'm cursed. We're cursed. The Winchester name's cursed. Legend has it that she was advised by a medium in Boston that she was haunted by the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles, and that she needed to continuously build a house to appease these spirits. That seems like that should be illegal to say that to a billionaire widow. Especially like a manic woman who probably shows up and she's like, yeah, I'll give you all the gold. Just tell me what's wrong. She was told that if she stopped, she would die. If you stop building your house, you're going to fucking die too. Construction on the mansion began in 1884 and continued nonstop, 24 hours a day until Sarah Winchester's death in 1922. That's fucking insane. The construction was guided by her own designs and was influenced by her superstitions and desire to confuse the spirits she was believed were haunting her. I mean, the actual labyrinth of this house is unreal. Like the way hallways end or connect with each other doesn't make any sense. It's an actual labyrinth, which I always thought ever since the beginning of time that people thought that spirits could just float through walls.
Well, that's the thing. Spirits think they're alive.
Oh, okay. That's right. You're
also, apparently, it only cost $5 million in 1884 money. So who knows?
$5 million in 1884 money. So that's got to be like what?
Oh, so
$71
million today.
God, $71 million today. That's insane. The house is an architectural marvel with 24,000 square feet, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 13 bathrooms, and 6 goddamn kitchens. The house is famous for its unconventional features, including staircases leading to nowhere, doors that open onto blank walls, and windows overlooking other rooms, and secret passages. One of the house's most famous oddities is the door to nowhere, which opens to a sheer drop to the second floor. That's pretty funny.
See, that's gonna get the ghosts. They're gonna
open.
Ooh!
Do you think that was, she's just like, the spirit who's haunting me right now, he's gonna walk through and die again. Do you think that she was probably crazy enough to believe that she could kill a ghost?
That's what that was. It was a trap.
I think if she did believe that, I think that she would probably invest into like Winchester making some kind of ghost gun. Or she has things, she's just like, in her house. Another peculiar feature is a staircase that leads directly into the ceiling, ending abruptly without any purpose. Which, going in this house, this would be fucking creepy. This would be an actual, like, oh, Jesus Christ. Well, it would be like you're on like a set or something, or like...
It'd be like that Escher painting, or you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. But seeing that in real life would be odd, especially if everything was built soundly. You're just like, what the fuck? Because you'd almost think the house is like moving. There's a scene in that movie Grave Encounters where they like go up a staircase and it just leads to a wall. And it's because the actual asylum is like shifting. It's kind of like the movie Cube a little bit too. Cube. Great movie. These elements were purportedly designed to confuse and trap spirits. Visitors and staff have reported various paranormal activities, including hearing footsteps, whispers, and seeing apparitions.
So she didn't want to kill the ghost. She just wanted to confuse them.
Trap them, which I think is fucked up.
Yeah.
You're a trap, and what are you going to do with them?
Oh, you know what? That's what it is. Okay, imagine staircase to nowhere. They walk up, they phase through the door. They don't know how to go, they don't know how to get out.
Here are some of the specific hauntings of this house, though. Many believe that Sarah Winchester herself haunts the mansion. That, of course she does. If ghosts are real, that bitch's spirit is definitely wandering around. Especially it's like a mentally unwell person caught in like a purgatory loop, definitely. Visitors and staff have reported seeing a woman in a black Victorian dress roaming the halls and disappearing around corners. This figure is often seen in rooms that Sarah frequented, such as her bedroom and the seance room. The seance room. That's a bitch is fucking creepy, dude. Some of the ghosts are even some of the people who built the goddamn house themselves. Some of these workers have been seen or heard toiling away to this day, still building on to Winchester's large labyrinth.
That'd be hell.
That is hell. That's actually hell. You have to do, a construction worker has to do the same job forever and it never ends. There are reports of disembodied footsteps echoing through the hallways and the sound of hammers and saws in the dead of night, despite no ongoing construction except for the Red Robin being built across the street. One of the most haunted rooms in the house was the seance room. Sarah Winchester used a special room in the house to communicate with the spirits she believed were guiding her in the construction of the mansion. Oh, so she believed that the spirits were like, you need to add this.
She'd go in her seance room and sit down and be like, spirits, what should I build?
Spirits, where should the staircase go above the fireplace?
They said, KFC under the couch.
Yeah, the workers are there. They're just like, a titty bar room, men only room.
She's like, I hear you, spirits. The titty bar will happen now.
Sarah would lock herself in the room from midnight to 2 a.m. and consult with the good spirits on how to continue the construction.
She's like, all right, good spirits, come on in. Bad spirits, stay out.
You think she ever, you don't need to include this in the video, but
Yes, she did get her eaten out by a ghost.
oh, I was actually going to ask that if she was going to get her, if she got her pussy ate. How did you know that? How did you know that? Am I that predictable? That's I swear to God, that's what I was going to ask. This room, known as the seance room, has no direct entrance or exit. It can only be accessed through a series of secret passages. That is fucking weird. Visitors often feel a sudden drop in temperature, hear whispers, or see flickering lights when they go near this room. Some have even reported feeling an unseen presence or light touch their shoulder.
Those are the good ghosts.
Those are the good ghosts. They're just like,
Hey,
I'll suck your dick.
you want me to eat your pussy? I tell you where to put a staircase at in your house?
oh, or how about we talk about the wheelbarrow ghost? Barrow? What's a wheelbarrow?
Hey, dude.
One of the most famous ghost stories involves a spectral figure known as the wheelbarrow ghost. The apparition is often seen pushing a wheelbarrow full of coal or ashes down the long hallways. Staff and visitors have reported seeing him in the basement along with various winding corridors of the house. He is described as wearing overalls and a cap, appearing solid at first, only to vanish into thin air upon closer inspection. Or how about the crying lady, aka every woman?
Jeez.
In one of the bedrooms, there have been repeated sightings of a ghostly woman who appears to be crying. She's often seen sitting on the edge of her bed or standing by the window, looking out as if waiting for someone. How tragically romantic. This apparition is usually accompanied by the sound of soft sobbing or whispers that seem to come from nowhere. I hate that, dude. I'd be like, grow up. How long are you gonna do this for? Fuck. But there are many cold spots or eerie drafts in this drab mansion. Throughout the mansion, there are numerous reports of sudden cold spots and unexplained drafts. These temperature changes are often accompanied by feelings of unease or the sensation of being watched. What was that? The cold spots are particularly prevalent in rooms where tragic events are believed to have occurred, or where Sarah spent a significant amount of time. Either somebody was bludgeoned to death, or Sarah just kind of stood there sometimes.
Or maybe she was getting her pussy eaten down there.
Or she's probably getting her pussy eaten by a ghost, dude. I'm just saying that we can't count that out.
That's the first thing I would do. If I could talk to ghosts, get some ghost head.
Okay.
Consensual, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you consider ghosts? Of course you do. The mansion is now a popular tourist destination, offering daily tours that exploring its history, architecture, and paranormal stories. Special events like flashlight tours and Halloween events are still hosted to this day. I wouldn't mind going. Yeah, I would actually be scared though. I'm not gonna lie. Definitely. If I went there, I'd be like, huh. What? I'm such a pussy when it comes to that stuff. I would go to this place, I'd be like, what? Hello? I'm like in a huge group. Did you guys hear that? I'm like, no. Next up, we have the Villisca Axe Murder House. It's located in Villisca, Iowa. It's the site of one of the most notorious unsolved mass murders in American history. In 1912, the Moore family, along with 2 friends of their children who were staying the night, were brutally murdered in their sleep with an axe. That's one thing I've noticed a lot with like a lot of ghost stories and history stuff. A lot of axe stuff. Everybody was probably cutting wood back then or whatever, but still brutal. That'd be a brutal way to die.
They say it's one of the worst ways to go.
Yeah. All the victims were found in their beds, having been bludgeoned to death with an axe. And the axe was found in the guest room where Stillinger's sister was sleeping. The killer appeared to have covered the mirrors and windows in the house with cloth and clothing. If me memory serves correct, I'm pretty sure they say that demons can come through mirrors. So sometimes you cover them so they can't see you or something like that. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of...
Was that in Constantine? He like jumped out in the mirror and the demon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that scene actually rules. The Constantine movie is actually fucking sick. All the victims' faces were covered with sheets after they were killed. And the ceiling in the parents' bedroom and the children's room showed gouge marks, presumably from the upswing of the axe. He's a fucking like 7'5" like ogre man. Yeah, he gets stuck.
How did they all sleep through this again?
Well, I mean, if you get a fucking axe to the back of the head or whatever, you're probably not waking up. Yeah, I don't think they were like, he was like, hey, wake up or anything. I think he just went in and probably just fucking did a one and done, I'm pretty sure. If I was a betting man. The investigation saw several suspects, but no one was ever convicted of the crime. Once again, it's 1912. So they're just like,
Did you do it?
the guy's like, no. And they're like,
All right, go ahead.
the Villisca Axe Murder House is now considered one of the most haunted locations in the United States. Numerous reports of paranormal activity have been recorded, and the house is a popular destination for ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts, like Sam and Colby, who did a video with Joe Rogan because they were on his podcast.
Would you ever want to do a video with Sam Colby?
Would I ever go to his hunting with Sam and Colby, a haunted house? No, you do not understand. I would be too scared. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those videos. It induces a goddamn panic attack. They're like, yo! I mean, it flusters me up. I'm like, what? I don't think I could do it. Visitors often report seeing shadowy figures, especially in the children's room and in the attic where the killer's believed to have hidden before the murders. I thought it was weird that the guy hid in the attic before the murders and he climbed up the fucking house. God, my fucking shoulder.
Wait, are you the axe murderer?
No. Apparitions of the victims have been reported, particularly on the Moore children. Disembodied voices, children's laughter, and cries have been heard. And some visitors have even reported being touched, pushed, or scratched by unseen forces. Paranormal investigators have even captured EVPs that seem to respond directly to questions. These recordings include children's voices saying,
Help me, play.
or simply calling out names.
Josh. Jamal. Aquarius.
I don't know if that queers his name. Other EVPs feature sounds of distress, such as moans, cries, and pleas for help. Morty. Many people report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread or sadness upon entering the certain rooms, particularly the attic and the children's rooms. Probably because they know that people were fucking murdered here.
I feel sad all of a sudden.
There's like blood stains all over the walls.
I feel bummed. I think I'm being haunted.
It's like, no, you probably know that like, fucking kids were murdered in here. Several mediums and psychics have visited the house, claiming to communicate with the spirits of the victims. They often describe the spirits as being in distress and seeking closure. And some mediums have even described playful interactions with children's spirits, such as feeling small hands tugging at their clothes, or sensing a playful energy in the rooms where the children slept. You guys feel like playing? I just feel all of a sudden I feel like playing in here. Anybody else? No, me? Okay. Yeah, they're all just adult babies. Anybody else want to play with this cool righty horse or whatever the fuck it's called? Puts underneath their pussy or their balls and they're just like hopping around the room. Mediums have sensed the presence of Josiah and Sarah Moore in the house. Josiah is often described as having a protective energy, trying to watch over his family and even in the afterlife. Sarah's spirit is said to be deeply sorrowful, mourning the loss of her children. Sarah's spirit has reportedly communicated the pain and horror of that night, expressing feelings of helplessness and an overwhelming sense of loss. Now, why are you so hung up, dude? It happened. Get over it. Here's the thing. This is gonna sound fucked up. If I was a ghost and it's been 100 years, I think I would have been able to process the kid's fucking passing by now. If they're all spirits or whatever and you're reliving that thing, how many times do you have to fucking relive it before you're just like, it happened? What am I supposed to do, dude? Unless they're in a perpetual time loop where it's new every time. Some psychics have described sensing a replay of the events of the murder night. They feel the terror and confusion that the victims must have experienced. This includes feeling the sudden fear, hearing sounds of the attack, and even feeling a heavy, oppressive atmosphere in certain rooms. That'd be kind of fucked up. Imagine if being there and you're just like, I feel like killing someone with an axe. Another person's just like, I'm feeling like I'm going to get attacked by an axe. It's like each person is experiencing different people in the house. There have been accounts of mediums feeling physical sensations such as tightness in the chest, difficulty breathing, or sharp pains, which they believe correspond to the experience of the victims during the attacks. And many psychics have focused on the attic, believed to be where the killer hid before committing the murders. They often sense a dark, malevolent presence in the space. The energy is described as heavy and oppressive, causing the feelings of dread and discomfort. And in the attic, it's also reported to contain the residual fear of the victims. Psychics sense the terror and panic that emanates from this area, believing it to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. The children's bedroom is often described as the most emotionally charged area, and psychics feel the innocence and playfulness of the children's spirits contrasted with the horror of the final moments.
Do they think a demon killed them with the axe? They think the attic is the most haunted?
I think that they're saying that the guy spent the most time up there brewing these dark thoughts that he was going to do. So maybe he left behind this horrible, evil energy or something. Like, I'm going to fucking kill myself. Like that kind of thing. So that's just that energy's left over there. I don't know. But there's so many more mysterious, weird, haunted places in America. We just scratched the surface, but I have to leave you today. Did you get titillated? Did you get scared? I don't know. I think haunted houses are kind of interesting. I think everybody has a weird ghost story somehow. Even non-believers, I think, have a little brush with fear every once in a while. And haunted houses are just weird artifacts to horrible, horrible things that happen. And it is just weird urban legends standing as monolithic, weird structures that still remain haunting to this day. And I think that's pretty cool. So maybe we'll cover some more again in the future. But for now, I'm a little too spooked to continue. Until next time, y'all. Stay haunted. I don't know.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray.
Oh, it's the spookiest time of year. And if there's one thing that brings me into the holiday season is creepypastas. And there's one person I wanted to invite into this video, which is our yearly video with Wendigo.
Hey, yo, what's good, my man? Thank you for having me back. Appreciate it.
Of course. It's been a year. Last year we did in the Halloween time, we did the nice movie recommendations, which I recommend you go watch those if you're looking for some themed movies for your holiday season. But if not, this is a good place to start. The story we're talking about today, it's not confirmed. I don't want to put out there that it's confirmed, but it does. I think people regard this as one of the first internet's creepypasta.
It definitely has the reputation for it.
Which is Ted the Caver. It was a little blog post made, I think, on March 31st, 2001 by an anonymous reader. A little bird told me that the guy that wrote this did it on a prank to his family who would read his blogs about spelunking. Have you ever heard of that before with this story?
I did not know about this theory. Oh my word,
That's
tell
a
me
theory.
more.
It was like a big practical joke on his family where he didn't talk to them for a while. By a while, too, I mean, like, it was like months. Like, horrifying.
This guy's evil.
It is downright evil, and I pray that it's real because it's so incredibly fucked up. This is all hearsay. This is stuff I've read online, but the whole thing was that he moved. He'd been proactively into cave diving, which his family's like, why the fuck would you want to do that? And he had been doing it a lot of his life, and I think that he started uploading this blog on Angel Fire, which I think it was just supposed to freak his family out, but of course it took the internet by storm. I mean, people have talked about this story to death. People do like readings of it on YouTube. You can listen to it on YouTube, but I think the best way to go about consuming Ted the Caver is actually reading it online.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if Angel Fire is still around, which angelfire.com was like a blog website in the early 2000s.
It's at least recorded because I'm reading it on, or like I reread it on angelfire.com. So you can still access at least that story.
Which the gist of this story, just to, before we get into it too big, today's video is sponsored by Displate. Displate has a wide, unique range of metal posters, letting you showcase your passion in a matter of seconds. Displate's magnetic mounting system eliminates the need for power tools or putting holes in your wall, like a little aggressive teenager, huh? Just unwrap, stick, and admire. Hang up a display in your room or office to spruce up any space. With tons of designs to choose from major properties like Marvel, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Counter-Strike, Magic the Gathering, and Fallout, Displate is sure to have something for everybody. I love Displate because they're durable, they're lightweight, it's nice metal, it's just good quality product. One of the displays we just got is a Nico Bolas Magic the Gathering poster, which if you don't know that's a Dragon Planeswalker. It's kind of a big deal. And here in our little workspace, we're trying to set up one of the spaces to be like a magic shop. And this thing goes beautifully in there. Oh, fits like a glove. But the best thing is if things change, you just pop it off the wall, you take it down, you put it up somewhere else. Displate, it's flexible and easy. And if you want to buy another one, Displate will ship it to your door anywhere in the world within 4 to 5 business days. Oh, mama, that's fast. Dress your walls with Displate. Click the link or use my discount code PAPA to get 32% off your first 2 Displates or get 38% off when you buy 3 or more. Thank you so much, Displate, for sponsoring the video, and back to the video. Is that it's a guy talking about his experience with a very odd cave that he's spelunking in, aka cave diving, aka the worst hobby on earth. I don't know why anybody likes spelunking. I'm extremely claustrophobic, so this story touches me to an extreme core, but it's about this man and his buddy named B diving down to a cave and exploring a mysterious hole that they find, and he writes in this blog as if it's his personal journal, just kind of going into great detail of all of the things that they see, the processes they do, and it's extremely effective. And it all begins in December 30th, 2000. So I thought this was crazy because I was like, oh my God, this story is now over 20 years old.
It is, isn't it? Wow. An internet story that's been around for 2 decades.
2 decades that holds enough infamy, but hasn't been manufactured into a bunch of different, because at first I was like, I'm surprised they haven't made a movie of this. But in 2013, they made a movie. I tried watching a little bit of it for this video, and it's really stupid. It's really bad.
Is this that movie, Living Dark?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I didn't watch it, but I saw that in research. Yeah.
It's just they change the story too much. It deviates from it, and you lose a lot of the charm of what makes this story actually very creepy. Which, coincidentally, I was thinking when I was reading this, there's a point in the story where the writer mentions Blair Witch, and I was wondering how much of that movie and the crazy ad campaign that had with the fake website, I wonder if that influenced this story, or like the way that it's approached, or if it was a practical gag, if it was inspired by that.
That's actually a good point, because Blair Witch gets credit for maybe not the first, but at least the first mainstream ARG of sorts. The way they built the website and like these fake missing persons cases and all that. So that would be interesting in a way if one of the earliest ARGs spawned one of the earliest creepypastas.
Yeah, well, I know people get all up in arms about that's not the first found footage film, blah, blah, blah. But it was the thing that, like, I think actually put found footage and the idea of lost media into the the pop culture realm or like the cultural zeitgeist where people are like, oh shit, this is a cool way to consume media, which of course has gone on to inspire tons, if not every piece of like analog horror and a lot of the things that we see on YouTube nowadays with like Backrooms and, you know, all that. I think it all derives from Blair Witch. But for people that don't know, there was a website where it was like talking about these missing people. And I think everybody believed it was real, which is funny because even I don't know if you felt the same, but at the end of the first Paranormal Activity, when I saw it in theaters, I thought to myself, oh my God, this is real. Because at the end, they didn't have the credits. And that was enough for me as a young child to be like, it's real.
That's it. That's it. It's real. It's happening.
Yeah. It's real. I can only imagine what people in 1999 were thinking when they saw this thing. They're probably like shitting their fucking pants.
I remember my mom told me, this is in Kentucky, in Eastern Kentucky, that she remembers while that movie's marketing campaign was happening, there were people at church asking that the missing college students from New England be put on the prayer list. It is so real that grandma in the South was like, oh, I hope they find out what happened to those kids up in the woods. Yeah. Like that's how much a lot of people said. It's insane.
It's amazing. It's so fun. And it leads perfectly into the story. And without further ado, like I said, we'll get into it. This story is written from December 30th, 2000, I think up until April of 2021. The guy made the post, though, on March 31st. It starts off with Ted, and he gives his partner's name is B. People say it's Brad. I don't know if that's true or not, but they're going into a mysterious cave. They refuse to tell you the name of it because he doesn't want to be responsible for anybody's death or people going to looking into this thing. But he's been basically making everything very anonymous, very discreet. So it's just a story he's telling. But it's all about them going to a cave that they've gone to before and exploring the cave and finding like a fist-sized hole. If I remember right, is when it first starts, it's just a little fist-sized hole.
He can just fit his hand through it, yeah.
But if you shine the light down in the hole in this cave, it does look like there's a little passageway into like maybe something that breaks off. They think it's a virgin passage. And for people who don't spelunk, virgin passage is basically just a place where no one has gone yet.
Like ever, historically. Like you would be the first person to set foot there, which is one of the appeals that people who are into spelunking talk about. The fact that you may step somewhere that humanity has literally never gone. It's like the surface of the moon, but underneath our feet.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like you're chasing, what is it, like a death-defying thing? Like you're like a rush, you know what I mean? So what's captivating about this story and what's happening too is that like it makes sense that the guy would want to go back each time something kind of weird happens. He's like, well, what the fuck is actually down there, you know, and actually search for it. So
it's one of those things that I used to resent it a little bit. Like when I was younger, I'd be like, oh, it's so stupid. Why would the main character, want to go to whatever this dangerous thing is? But as I get older, I'm like, no, I get it. If you knew something that outlandish existed, how could you sleep at night not understanding it?
It'd be like a crazy itch. It would just be something that is just pestering at you. So I understand. But to give a little excerpt, this is a little excerpt from when he sees the hole. There's a small passage in the lower portion of the cave that I wanted to check out to see if possible to get past it. It had a small opening, but lots of air blowing out of it. And then he says, we could hear the wind howling from the other side of the passage. It was a low, eerie noise. We could also hear a low rumble from time to time. No big deal, though. The cave is in the vicinity of a highway that was in the vicinity of a highway that has heavy trucks drive on it. We figured the rumble was the effect of the trucks resonating through the rocks. Whenever they go down there, that's the interesting thing is they start hearing things, but I also like how the story starts to implement like logical thinking versus like some stories, they immediately jump into like, what was that? It was something crazy and creepy. It's like, no, they're like pretty rational guys, which is what I also enjoyed about this. But I do think it's funny that whenever they find the hole and they call the passageway Floyd's tomb after Floyd Collins, it's bad on my part. I mean, I would not call something like that Floyd's tomb.
What
which
the
people
hell
who don't know,
are we
Floyd
watching?
Collins is a guy in like the early 1900s who got stuck in a fucking cave and died. So it's like,
and I played him in the Internet Historian video, and I had forgot that they named this cave Floyd's Tomb. So I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to get a kick out of that too, because I was thinking about the Internet Historian video and your face in that video. It's so funny.
Something else to mention about this hole they found too is to get to the hole, it requires at least a half hour to an hour of cave diving to get there. There's like ropes you have to rappel down. There's these rock walls you have to climb. You have to crawl on your belly at certain parts. Like it takes an hour of caving to get to this hole. So if something goes wrong, it's not just like you walk out and you're done. You're still trapped.
You can't just run away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't do the classic Scooby-Doo gang run. You know what I mean? They run in place and run away. It's just something where it's like, well, if you're down there, you're fucked. I mean, like, there's no getting away from anything. Like, it's a trap, basically. It's interesting, too, because they also say that the entryway used to be really pretty when it was probably first discovered, like, 2 decades ago, which, if this came out in 2000, you have to assume that maybe this cave was uncovered in, like, the 80s. But now it's, like, covered in graffiti. There's, like, beer cans down there from people who kind of go near the entryway, but they have, like, actively crawled and gone deeper into the cave where no one has been, and it just sets up something almost like who knows what's behind this wall. Now their whole objective with this first entry here, they're so curious about this passage in Floyd's tomb that they're going to try and enlarge the hole to where they can crawl into it, which of course is like much more difficult than, you know, you can't just like take a hammer to it. It takes tons of tools and time, which is pretty much what starts to happen over the next couple passages here.
It's so fascinating. Like, I'm horrified of caves. I'm horrified of any tight spaces. I remember I went on a field trip when I was in high school where we went to the Lost Caves in like eastern Tennessee. And they had these areas that were only like, 8-9 feet long that you could like dive in. Like, you could put your hands in front of your head and like crawl through them or whatever. And even then, I remember doing that. You don't think about it until you're in the situation, but more than likely, every surface or every like thing that you've been around, there has been some level of give to it. Like, even if you're under a rock and you start to move, the ground beneath you will probably move, or it'll be a little bit soft, right? But in the rocks of a cave, it's like you feel something touching your chest and back at the same time. And there is an immediate chill that goes down your spine of absolute unforgiving. That's what all the rocks feel like. I'm so terrified of that. And I think of that all the time. But the way Ted in the beginning of the story describes how incredible it would be to step foot, like you said, a virgin pathway on a surface that man's never touched before. I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I would in this circumstance. Like, he does a great job at conveying that.
Yeah, he paints like a very beautiful thing, which that's the thing too, is like the first passage here on the December 30th passage is him saying like, they're very excited about the remarkableness of this cave and the prospect of exploring a new kind of exciting path. And they definitely plan on returning. Like, you could tell how excited they are at the beginning. And it kind of just, the first passage just concludes with them talking about basically them leaving the cave and them just being like, cool, let's do this. But the next entry isn't until January 27th to 28th of 2001. So almost like a whole month passes before they return. And that's whenever he returns with B and they start descending back down, except this time they bring a DeWalt cordless drill, masonry bits, sledgehammers, bullpens, and other tools, facing the challenge to actually make some kind of entryway into this hole. Because like we said, it's only a fist big, so they're having to pound into earth and take shifts doing so, often yielding only small pieces like the size of your fingernails. This is an
pause that in one statement. I don't do a lot of research by cave, but I do know several different things could go wrong. If that cave is not stable to dig, you will collapse the whole cave, the whole section of that damn cave, and you would be stuck into that cave. But be honest, I don't know that it is true or not, but I do know all the cave in the world were never explored that much. So you don't know what is living there. You don't know what the hell living in that cave for eons and eons. I only heard one cave. It was long time ago. It's called the Devil Hole. And I don't know if I'm saying the word correctly, but this cave is like a supernatural cave filled with creatures into it. And when you enter it, that in the entryway you found, you go through, we will be gone behind you. I don't know if it's true or not, but it says real, and I'll look it up. It's actually a real place. It's real, right? But I do know in my standard of there's no way the fuck I'm not go through that cave. This cave will kiss my ass. I will not go anywhere in the cave. Only I have someone tethered to me. Or someone will on the radio talking to me and oh shit, I just lost connection. Well, I'm going to die. And I hear something crawling. Oh, happy day! I'm going to get eaten alive by a creature I cannot see. So yeah, rant is over. I don't trust cave. Even going through a cave before.
Story. To begin work, we had to get down on our hands and knees, do our best to avoid smacking our heads on the ceiling. Working in this awkward position, we would drill into the wall around the hole. That was the difficult work. We really had to push on the drill, and it was still a slow progress. Then we inserted the bowl pin into the hole and hammered on until the rock broke up. Then we would repeat the process. To give you an idea of how slow it went, the typical size of the rock that would break off was about a fingernail size. If we broke off a large piece, about a quarter of the scale of the palm, it would cause for celebration. Which, if I'm being honest, too much work. I would immediately give up. I'd be like, okay, and I'm done.
The first piece falls, and you're like, oh, this is going to be longer than like a 15-minute, half-hour thing.
Yeah. Or even just like a couple hour thing. If the first piece that came off and I was bringing industrial tools, like a DeWalt drill and shit, and it was just a fingernail, I'd be like, okay, don't think so.
They mentioned at one point, they're like, oh, maybe we could pull a generator up to the mouth of the cave and run a jackhammer down here. Could you imagine carrying like an 80-pound jackhammer?
Yeah,
like crawling with it. Yeah, absolutely not. Not worth it.
No,
How the
there's
hell
no
you
way. And that's what I was gonna say too. Is I say that I would give up, but if my fat ass had to actually crawl down a cave for 45 minutes to even get to the hole, I'd probably be like, well, fuck it, I'm already here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What am I gonna do? Crawl back up?
After hours of labor, they identified battery life as a limiting factor. The two batteries they brought drained quickly, ending the first session.
Batman should never go down a cave. Batman should stay up a cave to hear the people's screams. So if they're screaming, they know something went a whole wrong. I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack, so sorry, Sever. But no, what happened? You're gonna find one placement of a cave you cannot go through, and somehow, let's say this: somehow you went through that placement. It would be a miracle, right? But what happened? You had to turn around and go back through it, and this time you get stuck at that same spot. And this time, the same way you did it, it will not work in this part of the cave. And the cave will probably gonna kill you because you just make a mockery of it. And I don't know what the hell I'm saying, but no, thank you. Now, yes, I went through cave beforehand. This before I was a child, not adult. Bull Scouts went through a cave. I went to a small ass tunnel. I had to civil through and was have fun because it reminded me of the city museum. It was fun in my book. Civil just smiled. How the hell are you alive? I would be scared of my
What that's whenever they kind of pondered the idea of maybe the jackhammer, but they were just like, "What? Who the fuck are we kidding?" But then they did begin to notice a weird howling and rumbling noise, unexplained by outside factors. B planned to consult veteran cavers for insights, and I just wanted to do this little deal because I love this little excerpt. It says, "Then we noticed the howling again. It seemed to be a little louder than the last time we were there. We just figured the wind was blowing a little stronger outside. What we could not figure out was the rumbling. It too seemed to be louder and more frequent. This time, we cannot attribute the noise to trucks. The road that the trucks drove on was not very busy to begin with. At that time of night, it should be dead, yet the rumbling continued. It seemed to be coming from deep within the passage." I love the little, it's just little crumbs of things. And it's nothing too crazy, but it's enough to be almost believable while you're reading it. It's almost like you picture the rumbling in your head, like what that sounds like in a cave.
Yeah.
Which also, to be fair, I would be like, you guys are probably, your eardrums are probably fucking pulsating inside your head because you've been jamming. You've been in a small cave hammering, drilling with a DeWalt drill bit. It could be that, but to have that question feels very, very creepy. They get exhausted after all of these interactions in the cave, or after working, they get exhausted, and instead of driving home, they just kind of stay in a motel and they kind of just talk about how they're going to approach things. And they do this from time to time, not going home. They just kind of charge their batteries and then come back the next day. but the subsequent day mirrored basically what they did the first day. A bunch of intense work and kind of just some mysterious cave noises, but nothing too crazy. And that's where the second journal entry closes. It's them kind of just being like, it's weird, but we're going to keep going. Still not shaken.
At that point in the story, it's subtle enough, the fear, that it's kind of justifiable to ignore it, right? Like, you know, caves make weird noises. Maybe they mentioned later, maybe there's a waterfall somewhere. Maybe it's the road. It's creepy, of course, but it's just enough on the edge of like understandable that you could see why they justify it. I can't say that about their later decisions, but right now.
Yeah, like excitement is still in the air enough to where, which I'm pretty sure B at first is more like, hey, did you hear that?
Yeah.
And the guy, and Ted is more just like, dude, it's nothing. Just keep going. And he's just excited to see what's happening.
What are we going to do? Not break into a cave?
Are we not going to sit here for 70 consecutive hours chipping away, getting nail-sized bits of rock off of here? Come on, dude.
And you're going to let a little earthquake scare you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're going to let rocks caving in on your body, never to be found, scare you. Cool.
I guess history won't remember you then, loser.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Floyd's Tomb Part 2 belongs to me, I guess. But in Journal 3, he kind of goes into some cave lingo. He starts by saying, I noticed that I was writing in a vernacular that's probably known to me, and he kind of just really goes into depth about what caving is and kind of some of the things he was doing in terms of like his crawling positions and stuff. He kind of just gives a more in-depth breakthrough of what spelunkers have to do while caving, how weird the walls are, how tricky it is just to get to the hole when crawling through. And he really paints a picture that like, okay, well, this isn't like as casual as they were kind of leading up before. And what I love about that too is I was reading it and I was just like, dude, this sucks. This sounds terrible. Before he makes it sound like he's just like, oh, I'm just gonna hop in, and we approached the hole. I wanted to check this out, but this time now he's like, there's like weird vertical walls. I have to shimmy on my belly here. I was kind of nervous to even go through this hole, but I did it anyways. You know, there's water in some areas, which also just scares me. Imagine I know there's that one TikTok video of the guy who's like in a cave and it's half of his face is in water, and he's like, oh, I think the cave's flooding.
Oh my gosh,
have you ever seen that
video? Yes.
Oh God, fuck that, dude.
And he makes some comment like,
the most horrifying is go through a cave and this goddamn water right there. That's actually bad. Because you're down there and water will fill up that cave fast. Forward.
Oh my god. I think I'm stuck.
oh my gosh.
It's the worst.
Bro.
I hate it so much, dude.
Imagine dying that way where you have hours to think about it, you know?
Oh, man.
Oof.
I feel like you'd probably go insane, right? You would probably clinically have to be like going through the stages of grief in your head for your own death.
Yeah.
And I think that I would hope I would just go insane and just like, I don't know, drown myself or something.
It'd be so much better to like become non-lucid, right? To lose your mind,
definitely.
suffocate.
Yeah.
I think I'd just put my face down in the water. Be like, maybe I can drown.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck it, dude. I'll just go to sleep and just stay here. Fuck it.
There was one video I saw of a dude caving. He wasn't in water, but he was in a similar condition. And oh man, I don't know what kind of spiders they are, but there's like a bunch of cave spiders down there with him. And he runs into a nest and they just start running all over him. Like he gets swarmed in them.
Oh, they're all they're raining down on me now.
Like, bro.
I can't remember if it's that. I think that's the guy who it's him and his son do spelunking, and it's him like very casual about it. I don't know, but I have so little sympathy too because I'm just like, why are you down there? Why are you down there?
It's all self-inflicted. If someone was kidnapped and thrown in a cave, I'd feel horrible.
While I was reading this too, because they do say that obviously from the passage in the hole, they can feel a breeze coming out of like the hole that they're trying to chip away at. But I was wondering, I'm like, I wonder how much oxygen really is down there, because that's like a thing too that cavers fear about, is that if the farther you go down, the tighter the space. If you're there and you're pinned and you like are sucking up all the oxygen and just breathing out all that fucking, what the fuck do you breathe out? God.
Carbon dioxide.
Yeah, dioxide, whatever. You can just suffocate just by simply being there. Just like, I was breathing here, but I breathed out all the air.
Just by existing.
Even just by being stuck, you could just like, oh, I'm out of air.
There's a video, but are you familiar with Jacob Geller?
Yeah.
Have you seen his Fear of the Depths video?
Yes, I have.
Oh my gosh, bro. When he's describing caves as a living organism, that you're effectively in the digestive tract of like a dragon.
Yeah.
And you just have to try to not die. Ugh.
Makes me think of the movie we talked about last year, Borderlands.
I was thinking of Borderlands. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's such a cool theory and thought. They finally make some progress to where they're opening it up a bit more. Ted is still very optimistic, and he's kind of like looking at the hole like he's just like, I can fit in there. Fuck it. I remember that I frequently looked at the hole and thought, hey, it's big enough. I think I can squeeze through, only to be disappointed in my attempt. However, even after the first attempt and failure, I knew that I would keep working on the hole until I got through. This despite the fact that I knew it would take many more hours of hard work. It actually became an obsession with me. I tried to get out of the cave and work as often as I could. I hoped that the passage led to a larger, undiscovered cave and that we would be the first ones to enter. I guess the explorer in me wanted to find a new frontier there in the cave. Since B is such an avid caver, he was motivated by the same desire to find a new, unexplored cave. What we did find was not all that was expected. Which is a fun way to end the journal. I love that ending to the journal entry. It's kind of weird because, yeah, he's like scratching at it's like a dog scratching at the door to like get out or get in, whatever. He's like making a little progress. He's like trying to squeeze in, but can't actually do it. And they keep coming back quite frequently to actually work on the cave. I bring this up because after a while, they will not be as excited to return to the cave. But now they are still, coming back to the cave. They're still pushed by the potential discovery of being in some place that no one's ever been before. And they've even discussed some of the theories of what the rumbling is. And, they're talking about maybe it's just some water, like a river or like some kind of weird underground river that they just haven't seen yet. And they're kind of like, sidestepping being scared. They're a little spooked, but they're like, hey, it's probably water. This is where we start getting some fun scares, which is in the Journal 4 entry where they go at night, and this time B brings his dog, Whip. Terrible name for a dog. If I'm being honest. Just me being a
that's the problem with it. That's the problem with it. The dog. That's
the problem.
Not bringing the dog down into the cave, just what they did.
Yeah, no. Him bringing his dog down into the weird rumbling cave isn't a big deal. It's the name. How dare you?
Of course.
I didn't mind bringing Whip along because we plan on putting her into a small hole to see how far in the passage she would go. That's kind of animal torture. That might give us an idea of what is on the other side. They were going to bring this small dog and be like, get in there, Whip, see what's back there.
Go, Whip, you can do it.
God forbid. I'm like, God, I hope the dog comes back. Holy shit.
I did think that part was kind of brutal because it's like, sure, the dog, like maybe it runs around caves with them, but you don't know what's back there. It could be like a drop off or something. You don't know where you're sending the dog.
This time, though, they made it down much quicker because they didn't bring all these tools. They just brought the dog. So this time they were able to get to the hole much quicker and easier, and they were feeling pretty comfortable. But as they were crawling down, the dog Whip became increasingly more anxious as they got deeper inside and near the work site. The dog kind of got a little sketchy. And these are just some excerpts from Whip's adventure, as it were. The dog began exploring as soon as we let her off the rope. She was in hog heaven, sniffing and darting around our feet. She would run from one person to the other as we made our way back to the worksite. At the point the cave splits into 4 passages, the dog seemed to run out of juice. She just stuck right by either B or me. That seemed kind of odd. As we progressed further into the cave, she would stay by B. She seemed edgy, like she saw something she didn't like. As we approached the short drop-off before the hole, she stopped and would only come further after we coaxed her. The hair on her back stood on end. Finally, as we got within 20 feet of the hole, she began to whimper and hide behind B. Her tail was between her legs, and she was cowering down on the ground. Strange. I've seen her square off at dogs twice her size, but now she's acted as if Satan himself was lurking in the darkness. I figured there must have been animals that used the cave as a home, and Whip smelled their scent. Too bad it upset her, because there was no way she was going into that passage. Which, thankfully, when I first was hearing the story, I was like, God, please do not force the dog into the small hole. The dog's like, please, God, get me out of here.
And crying and yelling, and they're like, go ahead, Whip. Just
get on in there, Whip.
Load her in. To their credit, they don't put the dog in there when they see it.
They do not put the dog in. We want to make that very clear. They did not put the dog in. But when they were working, this is what the dog was doing. The entire time we worked, Whip did not move. She just laid there on a rope back, shivering. She would whimper from time to time. One thing I didn't think about at the time was that she would not take her eyes off the hole. We should have made more of an observation of the intuition of an animal. like if a small dog was whimpering, shivering,
Exactly.
I probably wouldn't just stay down
Animals
there
can
and
tell
open the
what
hole.
the hell
Probably
is
would just be like,
going
this is a
around
bad
you."
idea. But you know what? They're down there. What are they supposed to do?
It looks at the hole you're working on and starts crying. And they're like, wimp. What a loser.
Yeah, exactly. God, Whip, you pussy. Jesus.
Amateur hour down here.
Yeah, good Lord.
This hole that periodically makes grinding and moaning noises. What's your problem?
I think about my dog. Like, there's been times where I'm like laying in my bed and I like look up, my dog's just like staring there, like looking at a wall. I'm like, what are you looking at? Stop! Or it'll just be like he's just like looking at a door, and I'm like, is someone breaking into my house? Like, I get very afraid. I would immediately look at that and be like, this is like a haunted cave. We got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Haunted cave, haunted hole. But there's also another weird, strange occurrence, which is while they're chipping away at the hole, the progress is slow. B hears unexplainable grinding noises, and they both notice that the wind is stopping coming through the tunnel. B was working. He had just finished drilling a hole and was getting ready to hammer the bullpen when he stopped working and looked into the hole. He had a light by his side to illuminate the work area. I could see the eerie glow, a puzzled and intense look on his face. He looked over at me and shook his head. I asked him what was up. He said he swore he just heard a strange noise emanating from the hole. He said it sounded like rock sliding on rock, sort of a grinding sound. I assumed his ears were just ringing from the drill. He didn't wear any earplugs this trip. He assured me he had heard what he had said he heard. I didn't have an explanation, so I went back to dozing. B sat in quiet of the cave for a long time before he resumed work. He would stop from time to time just to listen. B is very grounded and not one to pursue some imaginary sound. It's starting to get into some more of the creepy territory. One of the guys is starting to hear some shit, but
Pause.
still, it's kind of like, dude, B,
I
you're
really
acting
wanted to-
crazy, bro. He just goes back napping. That was kind of funny. God, it's not that big of a deal, B. Jesus.
You're grounded
Just immediately
noise.
starts
No.
We're in a cave throwing rocks and you heard a rock make a noise.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me about
Wow, dude. You got to get your head checked on, dude. You and Whip are fucking up today.
it. Maybe
So,
Ted's
what do you
just
do
a
if you
jerk.
heard a
Maybe
ground
that's
noise?
Yeah. He is a jerk. As I was kneeling there contemplating how close we were, I noticed something that B overlooked. The wind had stopped. In all of the times I'd ever been in the cave, I've always felt the wind blowing. The last time we were out working on the cave, the wind was blowing worse than ever. Even earlier, we remember the breeze cooling us off, but now, nothing. B said he did not know when it stopped. The rumbling had ceased too. Bizarre. Which is just like, weird. The breeze has stopped. We're sweating up a storm down here. That's kind of weird, huh?
Hey man, you know how every cave we've ever been in has wind and it's never quit ever? Probably nothing to worry about.
It's almost as if there's a box fan plugged in on the other side, blowing constant air on us. Yeah, that stopped, B. Did you see that, man?
Right after I heard the rock noises.
When did this happen? He's like, I don't really know. I just was just working. He's like, B, you got to be a little more intuitive than
Like,
that.
oh, good. Slacking on the job. I see. Huh?
It's slacking on the job. Anytime in these passages, I love when they show the pictures, which definitely whoever wrote this, there is an argument to be made that they probably were a caver. And I think that they took these photos themselves of like maybe some random cave they were
I'm
exploring.
pretty sure, if I recall correctly, they found the real Ted, and he is in fact a spelunker.
Right now, my hobby is disc golf. Before that, it was mountain biking. Before that, it was caving.
It was something about like he saw this hole.
My buddy Brad and I, who is B in the story, had planned a trip out to this cave we had been to many times to explore this hole.
On one of their excursions or something like that, and be like, hey, it'd be real messed up if something scary was behind that. And then that's what like started the story. So yeah, these are real pictures.
So when I got done, I thought I ought to take my caving journal, which I'd been keeping in journal the whole time, and just publish it online. And then I just had the thought, why don't I embellish it a little bit, make it interesting?
That is not the time to joke. You know, it'd be really fucked up as if there was like a weird gremlin, like goblin down here. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, did you see that super long-horned demon at the end of the hallway there? He was laughing. Oh, you didn't? I'm just messing with you, man. Let's keep going. It's like, what? Fuck you, Ted. Like, look at these photos, too. I was like, God, how has there not been just a found footage film of this? Like, point of view, just him, like, pushing through. Oh, God. It would be so fucking awesome to see this turned into a movie, man.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the end of Journal 4. And then Journal 5, which is interesting, is they don't go back till March 3rd. So by this point, I mean, it's been 3 months that they've been at this hole, like chipping away at it and doing. This time, the team's attitude shifted from, oh, this is an adventure. due to kind of some of the previous stuff before. Now they're a bit more spooked, I think. But once again, the thrill, it's very like almost Lovecraftian of like, it's so unknown that it's kind of driving them insane and they feel so compelled to go back. Their conversations this time are a lot more subdued. They're not as jokey, focusing on rational explanations for all the things that are going on. They don't really discuss the cave with anybody else. That's one thing that they made a note of saying is he's like, people ask about the cave, but we never talk about it. So it's just like a conversation between them, which, you know, lighten up, Ted. Come on, man. You can't, how would you not go into a cave and be like, it was weird as there was like these rumbling sounds. B was being a pussy and so was his dog. But I started noticing that there was no breeze down there. So we were like, what the hell? You know, we're sweating down there like pigs. And like I said, that's when I saw the rock goblin. It's like, I didn't tell B because I didn't want him freaking out too much.
When they're on the drive back, he's like, yeah, so you see that thing?
Yeah, you saw that rock goblin, right? He was like 8 feet tall. He was on his belly. Did you not see him? Oh, dude, it was crazy. That's kind of funny to paint Ted as like this like totally oblivious like bro who's just like down there spelunking. Oh, you didn't see it? Oh, dude, it was sick.
Maybe we'll figure out what's making the noises, all that. Ted's like, oh, bro, that guy? Yeah, what's up? What, you missed him? Oh, man, that sucks. Yeah, he was cool. Yeah, he looked chill.
Dude, he had orange eyes and no teeth. You didn't see that?
He had orange eyes and no
But
teeth.
they have
Bro,
no
you would have
teeth.
loved it, man. Oh,
Man, you would have loved that, dude. He was funny looking. It's like, Jesus, what? So like I said, this time they go back in March. They start in the afternoon to avoid traffic, which last time they went at night. I don't think they ever go back during the day now, if I remember right. They all just kind of like always go back towards afternoon and night.
They do on the very last trip, but the rest, I think, are at night.
That's right.
Yeah.
They had kind of a solemn mood this time. The rock goblin joke didn't land. B's a bit more, he's a little more high-strung this time. The descent was efficient, but B sustained a minor injury. I forgot, did he slip here?
When the story starts, it says that B had injured himself like
That's what
a year ago, and he was still recuperating. So it's some previous injury that he's getting better from.
That's right. So he can't do as much as Ted, which Ted kind of knows that. And I think he always kind of keeps that in mind. He's like, I know he can't do that because he's kind of injured. Also, I think B's a bit bigger than Ted. So I don't even think that, I think they both know too that like only Ted's going in this hole.
Right.
Like B can't fit.
They even mentioned later on that they need a skinnier person if anyone's going to go. So
yeah, exactly. This time they both noted though the return of the mysterious breeze and the rumbling sound. So those are back. Thank God. So Ted says, I was kneeling down and working the drill slowly into the wall at the time. I had my earplugs in, my safety glasses on, and I was lost in my own thoughts. Suddenly, over the squeal of the drill wearing down the rock, I heard a strange noise. It was loud. It would frequently complain about screeching and whining as we forced it into the wall, but this was different. It took me several full seconds to comprehend that this was coming from inside the hole and not the bed. So now even I think Ted's getting a little scared.
every horror story has a turnaround point for me, right? Like this is the part where I lose my sympathy. And like I get the power of exploration. I get wanting to go caving. I get even justifying the rolling rock and stuff. Hearing a sustained 5-second scream that he later describes as a combination of a cougar and a dying man, I have no sympathy. If you're not immediately hightailing it out of there, don't care.
Dude, B, I don't think that was the drill bit. He's like, yeah, no shit, Ted. He's like, yo, what the hell? That thing was like 5 seconds long.
Did you ever think this drill sounds just like a guy screaming? That's crazy.
Yo, B, do you think that sounds like some kind of dying old woman in the hole there?
Bro, is that your dog, man?
Yeah. Dude, was that his bark? No, Ted. My tiny dog's bark isn't the sound of an old woman screaming. Oh, okay, cool. Just making sure.
No, Ted, my Jack Russell doesn't sound like a mountain lion. Okay, cool. Just checking. Just goes back to drilling. Like,
yo, when did your dog lose his teeth and have orange eyes? Yo, is your dog the same height as Xerxes from 300? Like, what? No. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, because that's what I thought I saw in the tomb.
You should take him to a vet or something, dog. That's weird.
Yo, is your dog high on ketamine? Do you give your dog ketamine? No? Okay.
Should I have not done that earlier? Oh, that's my bad. That's my dog.
Oh, shit.
It won't happen
your
again.
Dog are tweaking right now, dude. Me and your dog are on a different planet, B. Just like rips a fat vape, too.
Yeah.
Ted has definitely got a guy too to be vaping in there and just like filling the entire cave with smoke.
Can't see anything. It's just like a smoke show.
It's dark in here, B. Who gives a shit? I don't know why you're freaking out, dude.
Ted's just like a frat bro who got lost in a cave.
How he got through there, it's actually pretty remarkable. Where the fuck am I? No, yeah, they measured it, and it was approximately 7 inches high and 20 to 24 inches wide. So incredibly small. During work, a loud, unidentifiable scream emanating through the passage startled both, halting the progress.
Startled both? Really? I never would have guessed.
This is what Ted had to say. I stopped drilling and yanked my earplugs out just in time to hear the most terrible scream I've ever heard trail off the echo in the darkness of the cavern. I stared wide-eyed at the hole for several moments. I didn't move, nor did I breathe. To describe it, I would say it sounded like a cross between a man screaming in fear and a cougar screaming in pain. It sounded like it came from the hole and was roughly 100 feet away. The horrific noise reverberated through the cave and through my ears. Roughly 100 feet away is so close. That is so hauntingly close.
Run at you. Yeah, it'll close the distance.
Also, how the fuck? It sounds like a man screaming in fear and a cougar screaming in pain. Ted has seen some things. Ted has been around some crazy shit before in his life for sure. And I really like this. Ted's like, dude, I think there's like a fucking cougar down here or something. And in response, they just put some rocks in front of it because they think an animal's there. And then they just started working again. I thought that was kind of funny. He's like, dude, plug it up real quick. And he's like, do you think that was a cougar? And B's like, we're going to die down here. He's like, all right, dude, let's get back to work. It's like, what? That night they exited and they basically, they were like, oh, thank God we're out of there. Ted was like, you want to come back tomorrow? And B's like, I guess. So they stayed at a motel and they came back the next day, which is the end of Journal 5 and beginning of Journal 6. I cautiously approached the entrance to Floyd's tomb. I decided the best way to enter the small hole was to place one arm over my head, turn my head sideways, and slowly work my way in. I soon determined that this was not going to work. The hole was too small. If I was going to make it without widening the hole anymore, I was going to have to put both arms in over my head in a diving position, turn my head sideways, and slip into the tomb. The width of the entrance was the limiting factor. The height was sufficient. The arms overhead position flared my shoulder blades out, but there was still room to get in. Plus, the arms overhead gave me the best squeeze side to side. Just picturing that, going into a hole, first off, the cougar, the die man, regardless of that, going into a 7-inch tall hole, and it's 25 feet wide, roughly. Dude, fuck that. It's not like he's crawling with his arms. He's like inching forward with his fingertips and his like toes. He's just kind of like pushing himself.
It's almost as if he's like paddling his way in because he's just using his toes to move because he can't move anything else. Like, bro, and this is after you heard a scream. Even if you can reasonably assume it to be a mountain lion or something, why on God's earth would you go after a trapped mountain lion?
He's navigating with his flashlight. He was kind of telling B what he was seeing, but mostly it was him like clearing rocks, pushing towards what people call a squeeze, which is like another cave return where the passage gets at its smallest or at its tightest. So Ted is like trying to work his way up to the first squeeze, which they tried to do safety precautions by putting like webbing and like tied to his feet to where I think B could like pull him out if he needs to, but I don't know if that would really work, to be honest. And he just endured a lot of challenges. I mean, like going into this tunnel, it'd be a lot of like pain and fatigue. Just like his neck would probably lock up from being in that position. But think about like all of like the sharp rocks that your chest is going over, your legs, arms. Here's a couple more excerpts from Ted here. He says, I got my arms through the entrance with minor scrapes. Next came my head. By keeping it turned sideways, I was able to get in, for the most part, up to my shoulders. When I got to my shoulders, I could feel the rocks touching all around my shoulders and chest. It was not stopping me, but I was definitely scraping many surfaces of my body. I decided to just push through, keeping in mind that I was going to have to come back out eventually. The pain was not too bad, and I was in. Well, my upper body was in. At least I could get a good idea of what the tomb was going to be like. His vision and movement were significantly limited. I mean, he's just like sideways. His head is locked down to the side. So he's just kind of like pushing until a point where maybe he can stand up and look around. And he says, after I had twisted my hips into the passage, I took a few minutes to stop and work out a game plan. Most of the length of my legs were still outside the entrance. They were just dangling in the air. The tomb was still big enough to move my head around and even move my arms freely into the position. It was just larger than the rest of the passage, but not by much. It was like sticking your head into a box. Everywhere I looked, there were rocks, and not too far from my head, any sound I made was muffled and dead. The narrowest part of the passage was about 10 feet in. At this point, I was about 3.5 feet in. At about the 4-foot mark, I would have to commit to whatever position I felt comfortable, and stay that way until the 12-foot mark, at that time which the cave started to open back up. While lying in the darkness in a passage deep within a cave, one is in a unique position to ponder. A mountain literally resting on top of me, the entire earth lying below. One tiny movement of the earth and I would cease to exist, or worse, to recognize the fear shared by Floyd Collins as he lay there trapped for days deep within the heart of Mother Earth, incapable of freeing himself from the earthen prison. What a nice thought, Ted. That's a good thing to think while you're sitting there.
And he keeps going. This isn't
keeps
like,
going.
oh man, I got to get out. This is like, I'd be weird if I died right now. Anyway.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, well, fuck. I mean, that's just the way it is, I guess. While he's crawling through, he realized heightened vulnerability at 7.5-foot mark as the squeeze intensified. Despite constraints, continued to push forward by fully exhaling to collapse chest for extra space. When I reached the point where my back was rubbing, and I could feel with my head the passage was not getting bigger, I knew I was most likely not going to get through. Still, I decided to give it one more push. If I had been in the position a year ago, I would have been in a state of panic, but not today. I was pretty pumped. I took a few minutes to rest, then I went for it. I exhaled completely all of the air from my lungs. This caused my chest to collapse enough to scoot forward a few inches. Because it takes so much effort to scoot, I only went a few inches before I had to stop and breathe. As I inhaled, the chest pressed hard against the floor and my back against the top. It took a little longer to get my breath back. Unbelievably.
Please. I don't know what to say after this part. But oh my god. Oh my god. I cannot imagine it. This sounds like a 100% like a horror movie. This is like worse. Worse like a damn horror movie. Divine worse, you say. Or you think of like, I saw something, I don't know what to say. Why no one ever make a movie out of this? I hope so they are planning to make a movie out of this. Sivas is gonna send me something. Like, I don't know what the crap I'm seeing here, Dragon. Like, I'm seeing shit right now. What did you send me? What in the hell are you seeing? Okay, anyway, play. Wallet.
I did it again. Exhale, scoot, rest. Again, only a few inches. Repeat. I took a few minutes to enjoy this position, pinned in this small passage. I'm a fucking psycho. Wow, I could not believe how relaxed I was. I tried one more time to exhale and scoot. My back was rubbing too much to continue. Despite the failed effort, I was psyched. I took several long minutes to lay there and recover from the effort. B had been encouraging me the entire time. It was fun to hear him cheer as he saw my shoes go deeper and deeper into the hole. Which they have a picture of this, and it's
agony.
It horrifies me.
Absolute agony.
I hate it's something where I'm just like, why God? Why does this have to be an idea in humans' heads? Basically, after this, they were like, dude, we're in. And they kind of like forget about the other stuff. Like they're so stoked to just be in there and not have anything weird happen that now they're just like, dude, that was like the tightest place I've ever been, blah, blah, blah. And they're able to seize any kind of like weird thoughts that they might have had before.
There's one portion where Ted prefaces and he's like, I understand this may sound insane to some, but we saw this as the culmination of weeks and months and our entire careers as cavers to eventually lead to this moment. So he does paint a picture for what this meant to them outside of just a passage in a cave.
I mean, it's like a fucking odyssey at this point. I mean, it's like, I mean, even the next journal entry is April 7th in 2001. And I mean, one of the first things he says in this passage is, I took an oath. I made a vow. I would not leave the cave until I had made it through the passage, conquered Floyd's tomb. This would be the trip. He's like so determined. It's unbelievable. But this is also, as he pushes through, he's able to get through this tight space finally. And that's when he takes the camera with him and takes some pictures. And he also sees fucking hieroglyphics on the wall. And it's like very similar to the Blair Witch symbol, which is also, once again, another reason I'm like, I wonder if that was inspired.
Yeah,
it looks like one of those like little, like the stick people in the trees, whatever. Kind of has that similar vibe.
The symbol itself is interesting because I haven't done a ton of research into what the symbol could be before. What little I did, it doesn't correlate to anything, but it does kind of depict an image of like something above.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of view this as a vertical plane, you have maybe land above, cave underneath, but then something under the cave. Some kind of hidden passage down there. Or perhaps it's some kind of idol, because he mentions that beneath that hieroglyph, there's little depictions of people. So maybe it's like a worship, or maybe it's saying there's some quote unquote people underneath everything. There's a lot of different ways it can go, but it's so subtle in just the presentation of what it is. It's fascinating.
It is the perfect thing, at least that I love, is that it lets the reader just completely like explode with possibilities. And also, like, in a way, it formulates what people would be afraid of or most intrigued by the most. And I think that that's a really powerful tool. But also, once again, like you said, it's so simple. You can kind of take it however.
Yeah.
But Ted's all excited by going in there because he's like, oh, well, shit, if there's hieroglyphics here, there's probably a different entrance in, since this is obviously like a sealed wall that's a hole. So maybe there's a
no
different
one
entrance.
came the way we just came. So that means,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's got to be something else. He hears like rocks moving deeper in the cave, freaks him out bad. They really capture the feeling like, you know how when you're home alone, you do that thing where like you start going upstairs and you think someone's like running behind you, so you run up your stairs. I feel like they capture that really well in the story here. Strangely, the photographs he took in the chamber, they didn't develop, erasing the evidence of the hieroglyphics and the round rock, prompting the explorer to sketch the symbol. So that's like the thing that we see here is what he drew, his interpretation of what it was.
The round rock too is like particularly interesting because like round isn't a shape that naturally occurs in nature. Like if a rock falls off of something, it's going to be jagged, it's going to be broken. But a smooth rock implies it's been moved around a lot, which is harrowing because no one's been back there in at least, the past 1,000 years.
And especially because there's no water. Like that's another thing too, is like if there's a stream, usually it's chipped away until it's smoothed out, but there's nothing. So yeah, it does seem like somebody's been rolling it around or it's been moving on its own. It's very creepy. Ted, like the good guy he is after hearing all these sounds and seeing these things, doesn't tell B. He's like, nah, man, it was cool. Nothing happened. He keeps all the unsettling stuff away from B. I think he knows that B is definitely a little more intimidated by all of the crazy shit going on, which that ends the journal entry until the next time they go back, which is April 14th, 2001. And he says, only a couple days elapsed before B found someone who wanted to explore the passage with us. B told me he talked to a few other people who couldn't make it because of scheduling conflicts, but we get to meet our new man, Joe. He's an experienced, thin, twinky little man who was eager, but perhaps the most excited among them, impressing with his ease in navigating the tight spaces. So Joe is definitely a smaller guy. I know Ted was stoked because he's like, well, he's smaller than me, so he can definitely get the passage with me. He's going in, and Joe is definitely an experienced caver as well. So they're all really excited to go back in with this new guy to show him what's up, and also kind of told him, hey, don't tell anybody about this spot. Joe entered Floyd's tomb. The explorer realized they hadn't informed him of the cave's odd phenomenon, questioning what and how much they should have disclosed, which I love that part. They're just kind of like a blood-curdling scream, rocks move around. I got scared and basically left as quick as I could, but we didn't really know how much we should tell Joe. I mean, come on. Joe was sent ahead alone, his enthusiasm akin to a child's. Joe was as giddy as a little girl, and this is what they had to say about that. When I reached the tight spot of the squeeze, I had Joe snap a picture of me. I thought it would make a good photo, which is just, the photo's so haunting. I hate it. Once I got through, B started to relay my stuff to me. Then disaster struck. I had gone all the way in and turned around to pull my gear through. I had to kneel down and still crouch down low. I had got my helmet, ironically, and light, and was turning around to feed the rope back to B when I smacked my head on top of the passage. Human skull versus solid rock. Rock won. I told B what had happened, so he sent my first aid kit through. I was bleeding, but even worse, I didn't feel too good. Well, shit, dude. You just bashed your fucking skull. I patched myself up. Then Joe didn't think I should continue. He looked like a little little kid who was told that Christmas would be canceled. Although I didn't like the idea of him exploring the cave without me, for selfish reasons, of course, I wanted him to at least see part of the cave for making the trip out here. So he's sending Joe off into the hell pit that they've been digging into, and he's like, all right, man, well, have fun out there. And
Ted's a horrible person.
Once again, Ted is just really digging himself a grave here. I don't think that, I don't know. The anxiety mounted for awaiting explorers. Joe exceeded a set time limit for return, so they're like, just be back here by this point, but he's late. He's gone way too long. But when Joe reemerged, his condition was alarming. He was pale, breathless, and visibly shaken, with numerous small injuries suggesting a hasty retreat. He was uncommunicative and seemed eager to leave. Very suspicious. Maybe they should have told him, hey, Joe, by the way, buddy, seriously, there's a ghoul that lives down there in that pit. Just let you know.
Never mention to him a scrape. Again, even if you think it's an animal, tell him you heard something yell.
If there was a raccoon in there, I'd be like, hey, there's a
raccoon,
family of raccoons that live in there.
They're
careful.
Probably upset. You should be aware of that. Yeah.
Joe's post-exploration behavior was odd. He hadn't seen or heard notable cave features, and his short, dismissive answers raised suspicions considering the cave's layout. The ride home was tense, with Joe mostly silent and unresponsive to inquiries about his experience. Attempts to contact him later remained unanswered, deepening the mystery of what occurred in the passage. And then Joe says this to close out the journal. He says, once we got outside the cave, I figured we would be able to find out more from Joe. But when we got up to the final climb, he just unclipped from the rope and went straight to the truck. In the light of day, he looked even worse than in the cave. Joe said that he did not want to stay overnight because he felt terrible, and we believed him. So we headed home. We could get no more information from Joe. He just stared straight ahead. He was shaking like a leaf, and he said he was not cold. Damn, dude, you cold? What the fuck's wrong with you? Stop shaking, Joe.
Bro, are you like chilly or something? What's wrong, dude?
Yo, dude, B, turn on the heater. This pussy's cold, dude. When we tried to question him, his answers were short. I asked him if he saw any hieroglyphics. No. Did you hear us yelling? No. Did you see the round rock? No. Did you see the crystals? No. He said he just went a little ways in and started to feel sick. Something was fishy about his answers. He would have had to have seen the crystals. You're a fucking liar, Joe. I know that you saw the crystals. If he got far enough into the cave that he couldn't hear us yelling, but why would he not elaborate? To be fair, though, Joe just seems like also he's just like the vibe is off. Joe's like, dude, take me home. You guys suck.
It doesn't feel like Joe saw or dealt with anything like conclusive, absolute, but it does feel like something happened to him in that cave that changed his outlook,
Something definitely happened. He's not exploring any of the stuff, or he's just like, he's visibly shocked. They are painting a picture of a man who is just like, I do not want to even say any of the things that I saw because it's just like, then I'd have to almost relive it. But they decide to go back on April 28th this time, which is 2 weeks after their trip with Joe. But Joe's not there, obviously. It's just him and B again. Ted says this. As we were rigging up the rope to descend into the cave, I felt something for the first time. I did not want to go in the cave. It was not a feeling of foreboding. I was not receiving some premonition. I just had no desire to enter the underground world of Mystery Cave. I didn't share this feeling with B at the time. Such a good guy. Always not sharing anything with B. Even though I had no desire to go into the cave, I knew we had to. We tested everything, and I gathered the gear, wanted to take it into the passage. Then it was time. We looked at each other, but said nothing. Then I turned to face the passage. As I twisted my body to begin entering the tomb, I desperately hoped it would be the last time I would contort my body to enter this claustrophobic nightmare. From behind me, I heard the scraping noise. It was loud. It was close. It was coming from the large room I had just left. I wheeled around to face whatever had made the noise. When I did, I lost my presence of mind and stood up at the same time. Crunch! My helmet crashed into the passage of the ceiling. My light broke, and I was buried in heavy darkness. So he goes in. He's saying, I really don't want to be here today, but God damn it, I have to. He does it anyways. He hears a little something, and then this would be my actual hell. Being in a cave and then having a light break and just being in complete darkness, that has to be on the top for me. That's like the top of my list. A claustrophobic nightmare and you're in the darkness, dude? No way.
Gosh. The level of fear.
The way he describes the pain, too, is so surreal. Like, he's like, pain shot through my neck and down to my back. The helmet had protected my head, but my neck was nearly numb from the impact. So he's just like a vegetable in this cave now. He's like, my head was fine, but I couldn't feel my spine. Fear enveloped me, and my knees began to weaken. I slowly and involuntarily slumped to my knees. I gently set the camera down as I began to see stars from the pain in my upper back. The scraping noise lasted only a second, and now the only sound I could hear was my own panic-inspired breathing. Not only could I feel the fear thick upon my chest, but the darkness seemed to hold me in place. I felt like I was vulnerable from every direction. I wanted to turn and look behind me, and to the side of me, and in front of me. Everywhere I saw was black. I used the glow stick to light the phone reel, and with a fumbling fingers, I managed to plug my phone into to the jack. I put the phone to my ear and heard nothing. The usual beeps to indicate connection with the other phone were not there. Which B and Ted have been talking on a phone.
They used to use them in cave expeditions. It's effectively like a telegram line. So you run a physical cord from one end to the other, and you can talk to each other, but it has to have that actual cord. It's the equivalent of like 2 cups tied to a string.
That's what they should have had. So we and B decided to tie the cups together.
I do love this scene a lot because of how it's so visceral, but also subtle, the horror. So like we've had the tease for a while of the noise of rock moving on rock, but then he's as soon as he passes that main room, he hears it very close and very loud from that main room. And then in the same moment, his light's gone. Sure, you don't see a demon, you don't hear something speak to you, but you hear that noise and now you can't see anything and you can't talk back to your friend. Horrifying.
It's absolutely horrifying. It's just painting such a picture, and like it really is just such a descriptive retelling of just what it's like to be in hell, like to be in that nightmare. It's so effective even just through text. The phone is going silent, his legs are weak, he can't do anything. He's basically trying to move his way out now. The short trip through the room took an eternity. As I passed the crude drawing, it seemed to glow, as if offering some sort of warning. I didn't know what the drawing represented, but everything about this cave seemed to instill fear. Toward the far end of the room, I could see the round rock dimly as the far reaches of my light. Something seemed different about it, but I couldn't tell what. When I got within a few feet, I could finally tell what had changed. It had moved. That was the sound I heard. I remember when I read that for the first time, I was like, dude, fuck that.
Yeah.
The giant round rock, and it's like, oh, that was what was.
Yeah.
That was the sound, is that giant round rock moved. Okay.
I had
fun.
that suspicion when earlier he mentions he could hear rocks moving on rocks, and then that the rock was suspiciously round when he comes to it. And then to realize I was right about that is terrifying. Oh, yeah. Man. It's very cool horror because it's so unique. In this open cavern all the way underground, something is rolling around a boulder. And it's not something that's immediately trying to target and kill him, because it would have done that in the darkness, right? But for some reason, the boulder moved.
As he's noticing that the boulder moved, that's immediately when he's like, okay, I want to get out of here. But coincidentally, it's also whenever he's starting to freak out and he begins to quickly leave. And he says, finally, I reached the last stretch of the cave before the squeeze. As I was crawling toward the beginning of the tomb, I called to B. He answered back. I screamed at him to get everything ready to go. He asked if I was okay since he hadn't heard from me on the phone. He got worried. I told him no and to get everything ready to go. He asked why, and I screamed that there was something in the cave with us. There you go, dude. First time, at least, you know what though? For Ted, that's a big step. It'd be really funny if he's like, nothing, it's fine. He's like, once again, he's like still holding information from me. No, dude, it's cool. Don't even worry about it,
Bro,
man.
did you leave Whip down here?
Yeah, dude, give me Whip. I want Whip. You bring it to me. He's obviously in a panic, but that's when he starts getting that nauseating stench, like the smell. He says, just as I started into the squeeze, I felt the wind in the passage increase, and with it, the most nauseating stench I had ever experienced. It smelled like damp, rotting, rancid, putrid death. Almost started to dry heave. I love this expression too, because it's almost as if now this entity or monster that's down there with him, now you're starting to smell it. It's like becoming more and more realized, and it's almost like this creature that's been completely hidden is like stepping forward from the darkness, and you, in your mind's eye, you're kind of picturing what the hell is this thing that's moving these boulders around. It smells horrible. It's probably been down here eating like dead animals or like rats and stuff for God knows how long. So creepy.
There's that mention too whenever he's walking by the boulder after it gets rolled out of the way, that it led to a passage that he says is like a 45-degree angle going down like into the rock.
Yeah.
So it's like, what? Is that like a chute for something? Is that what this thing crawls up? So you can almost, even though it's never said, you can kind of track in your mind, like the boulder moved, he now smells something. You can envision something coming, getting closer, like it's moving up the cave to get to him. Everything in the story is so well laid out at this point that you can picture what a chase would look like.
Basically see yourself in this room or a version of like what that slant would be like. It immediately made me think that like the practicality now of that room to something that lives there.
Yeah.
That's what I started thinking of, is like, is the boulder like a door somehow? Is it used to like hide? Like, it's setting up all of these great narrative devices that I think are so fascinating. And it leads into probably one of the scariest parts of the story, which is their escape here, which this is a little long, but I think it's worth reading a little bit. It's a great one, which is them retrieving the rope. And he says, I did not see or hear B until I reached the small area at the bottom of the drop. He was on the rope and climbing out as fast as he could. This is them leaving, by the way. They got out of the hole and they're running. I could hear him moving quickly and breathing heavily. I called out to him, and his startled reaction told me he was nearly as tense as I was. He told me to get on the rope and start climbing. We both knew what would be dangerous and not something we would normally do, but this was different. From above, I heard B warn me, "Rock!" And I ducked under the ledge as several small rocks landed on the floor near my feet. I quickly went back to pulling the rope in. I had about half of it in, about 50 feet, when the rope hit a snag. Ugh, it was solid. There was no way I was going to crawl back to release it, so I decided to just forget the rope and get my harness on and get out of the cave. I quickly threw the harness around me and started to buckle it. Before I could secure it, I heard a strange noise at my feet. My pulse began to quicken. I looked down at the rope, only to discover my horror that the rope was disappearing down the darkness. Something was pulling the rope back into the cave. I love that.
Oh, it's
I
so
love
good.
that. It's so good.
Imagine the horror of you're wheeling it in and then something starts to tug back on the other end.
Oh my god, dude. We still have no idea what is down there, but it's just the tension and the
There is
anticipation.
so much
It's
going
amazing.
on with nothing going on.
I cut up to B on the ledge below where our relay point was fixed. I told him to keep going. It would only take him a few minutes, but every second would be a torture because I had to wait for him to get up. I watched the rope that we had just climbed up. I expected to see some creature from deep within the earth climb up and make me its lunch. The rope moved around a bit in rhythm with B's climbing, but did not appear to have any tension to it. As I stood there waiting for B, I kept watching the rope for signs of anything bizarre. I didn't know if my heart could take any more stress. I could not have been more wired. I tried to relax a bit to make sure I was thinking rationally, but my poor brain had reached sensory overload. As B reached the top of the last climb, I got ready to clip on my ascender and get my sorry butt out of there. It was then that I noticed that the rope began tightening from below. I could feel the tension on the rope, but it was a steady tension. Not like someone was climbing up. Either way, I wanted out of there as fast as possible. I clipped on and scrambled up the rope. I had noticed, but B had kept on moving towards the entrance. I got up the last few feet in a hurry and just unclipped and kept on moving, leaving the rope behind. They made it out of the cave, luckily, and I mean, now they definitely know something's down there. At least Ted does. I think B just believes them, and they're just like completely I mean, they're just completely drained now. They're just like, oh my god, screw this. Like, they don't really talk very much after they get out. They just are kind of in their own heads. 4 days later, still haunted by the experience, Ted kind of explains that he struggled to write due to how crazy and overwhelming his emotions and memories were of the event. His vivid recollections of pain, stench, and terror still haunt him, and his difficulty concentrating even after several days. Like, he talks about, like, he can't watch TV. He's been asked to, like, go home from work early. He's just kind of, like, completely emotionally and mentally gone, still trying to process what's going to happen.
He gets medicated during that time. He starts to see the visions and stuff like that. Like, dude is in a bad place.
Like, when he goes to a doctor, he doesn't even explain what's going on. He's just like, oh, I'm messed up.
Yeah.
Just to get a prescription. He says something along the lines of, like, he doesn't want to just, like, pop pills and be addicted to it his whole life, but it's like gotten to a place where he's like, I just simply can't take it anymore. And that leads us to May 19th, 2001, which is his last entry. It has been 3 weeks since our last visit to the cave. I want to update everyone as to my condition, my plans for the cave, and the events of the past few weeks. It took several days to get the last journal entry written down. I was so shook up from the experience that I could do little else but sit around and ponder what happened. When we left the cave, I was nearly in a state of shock. I could not think clearly, and I was having a difficult time trying to understand what happened. I didn't eat much, nor did I get any sleep. I had an overwhelming feeling of anxiety sneak into my soul. I was depressed and confused and had no one I wanted to turn to for comfort. Which, if this is a joke to your family, awesome. I mean, imagine the family reading this part. Like,
I have
horrible.
no one. I'm alone. There's no one here.
There's no one here. I feel terrible. I continued in a miserable state, eating and sleeping whenever I could manage, until a week after the trip. Then things started to get strange. At first, I was hearing sounds in the house that had no explanations. Footsteps, shuffling noises, creaking doors, you know, the typical horror movie fare. Only the sounds were not distinct. It was as though I wasn't sure I heard what I thought I heard. I'd be eating or getting out of the shower and stop, thinking I heard something, but the sound would not repeat itself. In fact, if it weren't for the fact it had happened frequently, I couldn't be sure that the noises were there in the first place. Either way, I was scared. It was as though I had been caught on a spider web for the last week. Feeling of anxiety, foreboding, tension filled my life. Then came the hallucinations. He goes into depth about him having hallucinations of seeing things out of the corner of his eye, things in his house going on. He can't have any sleep. He's been shutting his blinds so he can, like, realistically stop thinking that things are, like, looking in his window, watching him. Just horrible stuff. Until he has this, like, overwhelming feeling to go to the overlook to see the city lights.
This is a fascinating part of the story. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And he says, I wanted to drive to the Overlook Point to see the city lights. I didn't know why I needed to go there, but I knew I had to go. The closer I got, the more urgent the feeling. When I arrived at the point, I saw something that first startled me, but then it caused me to be more relaxed than I had been in a long time. Joe was there. He was out of his car, standing looking at the lights. He could tell from the look on my face that we shared some of the terrible experiences. Our conversation was unbelievably brief. You been back? He began, even though he knew the answer. Yes, we need to return. Tomorrow good? I asked. Yeah, noon. He got in his car and I got in mine. I hadn't even talked to him about his experience. Obviously, he didn't want to know mine. I love that.
It's so
I love
good.
that little excerpt.
It's so good.
Just that the very, very quick back and forth is just so, I don't know why, but I always picture like an X-Files episode or something, like the overlook of the city.
Yep.
The city lights there, and then just this brief encounter, and then both these guys just get in their cars and go away. But what's weird about it is that he's like relieved to see Joe instead of being creeped out. I was always fascinated by that part. Whatever haze he's been under, it was like relieved, because almost as if whatever was like puppeteering this plan was like letting go for a second. You're where you need to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, both of them felt the need to go to this one point at the same time, and there's not even a discussion. Ted treats the story when he's writing it as if, like, of course I would want to go back to the cave. Why wouldn't I? When to the reader, that's the farthest thing he could possibly want to do. It's such an interesting little moment between the two.
In my opinion, it's one of the most impactful parts of the story.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, because anybody else, if they do that, they'd be like, "What the fuck, Joe? You're here?" And like, you would think that they would explode into a conversation, but no, they're just like, "We should go back.
We need to go back. We have to
Noon?
go back." Yeah.
Okay." And which leads Ted to go meet with B after his interaction with Joe, and he says, "I drove her to B's house. When he answered the door, I thought that B actually looked like he was doing fine, somewhat happy. One look at me, his disposition changed. B looked dead serious. He just nodded his head." Basically, they knew that they were going to go back to the cave. Part of this I liked because Ted ends it by saying like, "Oh, I just noticed that every light was on in his house," which is so simple, but that made it so creepy to me. Of just like, I noticed that every single light was on in his house. It's just a quick little blurb.
B knew that something went down in the cave. Like, he was running, he smelled it, and at the very end, there's that mention that B cut the rope whenever the thing was like pulling on it, right? B knows something went down, but because he didn't go in that room, up until that point, you kind of have the idea, well, maybe he's free from whatever's plaguing Ted. Maybe B's doing more okay. And we've seen Ted's side. He's hallucinating. He leaves all the lights in his house on at night. And you're like, okay, maybe B's not going through it. But when he visits B, B's like, oh yeah, please, you can stay at my house, sure. And all the lights are on. And you're immediately told, oh no, B's got it too.
That's what I like you're saying, is like the writer tried to put your guard down by having B be like, oh, well, he didn't see it, so he's fine.
Yeah.
But no, actually, he's just as tormented as them. And if anything, he's putting on a front to maybe like try to trick it, almost like you're not trying to give in to the things you're seeing. So it's very creepy. And I mean, the story begins to wrap up by him talking about their preparations to return. He talks about how they're going to bring more first aid kits. They're going to bring lights. He's going to bring a video cameras. He's going to bring a pad and paper to write whatever he has to do. But they are determined, like they're almost in a haze, like being like, we're going to go there. And the conclusion of this story is so like hauntingly awesome. It's always stuck with me. And the fact that it's supposed to be like a blog post makes it so much better. And this is part of the ending here. He says, many of you don't agree with my decision to pursue this cave. I'm afraid I don't have a choice. If I am ever to experience restful slumber, I must return. If I am ever to walk the halls of my own home in peace, I must return. If I'm ever to exit the overworld and enter the subterranean world of a cave, I must now return. I no longer feel that I have a choice. I must return. For my family and friends who are reading this, I say, be at peace. I will conquer this cave. Then I will return and update this website immediately. I will include any photos we take in the cave today. And if you stop by my house, I will show you the video I have. I expect to be home later tonight or tomorrow at the latest. And that's the last post. It's like, it's such a good, like, when I remember the first time I end this, you're like, oh God. And it does a couple great things. One, it makes your mind race, obviously, about like what was down there, obviously. But then it makes you think, I immediately thought of his family finding this. Like, I thought of like the aftermath of that. I thought about like people back then reading this, because God forbid you read this the day it got posted and then you check tomorrow and you're like, wait, what the fuck? And you're like updating it. Oh my God. You know, like what happened?
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. It's so hauntingly just like beautiful in that way. Just that nice poetic ending. Man, it lingers with you. It's just so Lovecraftian. I mean, like it's just that perfect Lovecraftian end to where it's just so bleak. It's bleak without even being bleak, because Lovecraft would probably say something like the horrors, like we're all dead, like blah, 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 blah. But really it's just like, you know, I'll see you tomorrow. And that tomorrow never comes. And that's like the best part. Realize realizing that there's no other post, like you just kind of like scrolling down more, being like, wait, what the fuck? That's it? What happened? It's so good.
I remember first time like thinking like, okay, what's next? And then it just stops there and you're like, oh, that's what was next. That's what happened to him. I love how much we are given and how much is left up to imagination. We're given things like the boulder, things like the hieroglyph, the smell, something pulling on the rope, and this kind of supernatural desire to return. Something led him to go to that mountaintop and meet Joe. Something makes him feel like he has to go back to that cave. Something beyond just the need for exploration. Something's giving him these dreams, these visions. We're given hints as to what it might be, but there's just the right level of interpretation left up to the audience.
Oh, dude. Well, that's the best thing about this, is that the ambiguity never feels like ambiguity, because the author, whoever wrote this, is so in depth with everything else. The amount of detail he gives the cave that you get in just the process of cave diving, all of these things are so in depth text wise. I mean, this isn't like a short read. Like it takes some time, a couple hours or something like that. The areas in which it doesn't explore, it's because it cannot. And that's what makes it so good. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel like ambiguous horror that's just like, well, that's up to your interpretation. It's giving you everything that you need to know while still not showing all of its hand. I love that. The juxtaposition between being so super detailed and then wishing there was more. That's what I thought was interesting on this reread, was like, God, how I wish that like we could have known what the monster was, just one more day of another log. But it's so interesting because he gives you so much. It's just so much visual candy that you're given to just like absorb and really feel like you're in the space. But yet it's something that dies with Ted.
Yeah.
Is what's so great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Creepypastas vary a ton in quality of great or bad.
Definitely.
And I love that they kind of kicked off in a sense, or at least in the cultural mindset, with such a banger.
Yeah, I think it set the bar high. And I think that there's so many good creepypastas out there too. And that's the interesting thing, is that they can be so simple or so complex, but this just rides that perfect wave. I love a lot of creepypastas, but this one always has stuck with me for forever. I was younger when I first read this on a website. I don't think it was Angel Fire, but it was definitely a different kind of website. It scared the shit out of me. And of course now it's blown up. There's tons of people who have done rereads of it on YouTube, but it just feels like that perfect mix. It's just so fun. And I think honestly, as something where if you're in the Halloween mood and maybe you're like, I feel like I have no horror movies. I feel like I'm craving to be put into the season that is Halloween. I think that this is awesome. I think it's great to read before bed. It's actually really fun too to read across multiple days. If you stop per journal entry, it's really, really fun, especially if you haven't read it before. Because then it almost feels like you're updating yourself on the blogs as they go on. You can really let it sink in. That's a lot of fun. Hard to do because, I get glued in. I know whenever you were reading it too, you were like, I just need a couple more minutes. I'm really hooked.
Yeah. Because I had heard it a while back. I think I'd listened to it before, but reading it, there was all this stuff I didn't remember. Details about the boulder and the hieroglyph. And I was like, wait, let me cook. Let me get through this.
It's so fun because there's so many times where I'm reading it and then you stop and you're just like, what is that? I found myself pondering more about being like, oh, very happy with what was being revealed to me. All the little context clues, all the little breadcrumbs that they leave are just awesome. So
it's so good. It's so many layers. Just the hieroglyph has so much to it.
The real thing is that when are we going to get the sequel with Whip going in there and following him?
That's why everything went wrong. They didn't bring Whip with them. Whip would have kept him safe.
What would be fucking insane is if somebody did a found footage horror film and it's they tape a fucking camera to Whip's back, the tunnel, and it's all the perspective of just a dog walking through. So then that also seizes the thing of why are you still recording? It's dude, it's a dog with a camera on its back. It can't stop recording.
The dog doesn't choose. They did that with VHS
2, the second one.
Yeah, the alien one. Yeah.
So good. And it's perfect too, because it's of course. And the pacing of that is great because he's just running around and he's scared.
Yeah,
that's good.
The dog's gonna do what the dog does. But yeah, I really love Ted the Caver. What do you think the creature is at the end? Because they mentioned the hodag.
With the hog dog?
The hog dog. No, that's Whip. You're thinking of Whip.
Yeah, the hodag. I don't know. I mean, the hodag, which people don't know, it's a bullish, little horned creature that just kind of lurks around caves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, in my mind, every time I read this, my mind always goes to a place of the descent of some kind of weird culture or thing that still lives down there and is feeding on things. But when I read this time, it did feel more paranormal. It felt like almost like something that was sealed up that they released, which is also great. You know, like a Sphinx's curse, unveiling a tomb and releasing evil into the world, like a different kind of like, North American feel to that.
We mentioned Borderlands earlier, and I really do think of it as that creature. I think there's this massive thing underground that was maybe worshipped at one point. A lot of these caves, these tunnels are maybe like ways people used to get to it or creatures used to get to it. Maybe it has smaller creatures that go out and feed it. But when he talks about the smell overwhelming the cave, I imagine that that's like its stomach opening. Yeah, like bile. Yeah. Maybe he has creatures that drag people down into it, and that's what grabbed the rope. But when they get out and he's thinking about, I have to go back, like we brought up Lovecraft, I think of it as some like creature within the mountain, some unspeakable horror down there that has dragged humans into it for centuries. I kind of think of it as something like that. But again, that's what I love about the story so much. There's nothing outside of what is scary to me to support that. So it is the scariest parts of my brain that put the pieces together. And I think that's fascinating.
Also, it is funny to think that it's a stomach, because it's like the day they smell something, it's just like the fucking pagan god or whatever had like bad like heartburn or something.
It had indigestion.
Like stomach bile. He really doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like 40 feet.
And then it's just like, oh shit, I heard something, and he leaves. So it's like you never really actually go that far until probably the time that they went in the last time, and they probably went as far as they ever did and never made it out. So it's such a captivating story. But appreciate you stopping by, Wendigo. And if you haven't checked out Wendigo's channel, you got to check it out if you love this kind of stuff, because he does it much more in depth, much more entertaining than I do. So please go check out his channel, give him some love. I appreciate you stopping by, buddy.
Absolutely. And you sell yourself short. It's always a pleasure to come on. I enjoyed last year's video. So
welcome back to the Papa Me channel. How you doing? How you doing? Come on in, sit on down.
The thing, there's not a lot to say because we're probably gonna have to stop the stream here sooner or later. But I do know a couple. I just heard a call horn. Okay. Yeah, the moment of he says the smooth stone moved, I was kind of wondered of, wait, there's had to be a reason why that stone is smooth. Is a reptile used that stone to give him its back scratch, because there's a lot of animals use rocks to scratch their own backs because of bugs and stuff. Or I don't know. We never tell something. I have no clue. I'm just shocked that this thing exists. I never heard of this kind of story in my whole life. Civil fist. I'm shocked. I found something dragon cannot say. I'm gonna find more to break dragon mind. But the moment of they meet on top of the hill, I believe is like a weird venom of this creature produced. Like the smell. Like kind of mind control. I can tell you want to talk so badly, but your grandmother, your mother is like next to like that dragon. I want to say something as well, but I can't. I need to tell you tomorrow what things I want to say. So yeah, make sure you write it down so that you can have the same conversation. Because for me, I'm not used to people who muted. Seba, what's your thought? I thought it was creepy. Oh Jesus Christ. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. We're gonna see you next time. We're probably gonna. And like, what the fuck you doing? Like, how dare you try to make my stream end? Well, I'm gonna be leaving here sooner or later because no, I'm gonna be leaving. It's 10:08. It's bedtime where I live.
Now today, I have something pretty interesting to talk about. When you think of Florida, what's the first thing you think of? Old people, retirees. You probably think of Miami, beautiful women, unbelievable street food. You probably think of Disney World, alligators and swamps, humidity, and, you know, all those crazy Florida residents. But I'm sure one thing that maybe slips your mind is the creepiest town in all of the United States of America. And that, of course, is Clearwater, Florida. We were going to do a big video about a bunch of different creepy towns, but this specific town was so interesting and so oddly disturbing that we were just like, fuck it, we're just doing the whole thing about Clearwater. Clearwater is very, very interesting. If I could do a sales pitch to you, it's a cult buys a town. That sounds like a movie or a video game, but it's very much real life. And it's something that is so fascinating because it is still ongoing today. There's no real happy ending to this story, but it's a story nonetheless. So to really get into Clearwater, we're going to have to understand Scientology. If you've been alive while the internet has been a big thing, it's impossible to avoid Scientology. You might know a little here and there, but it's a very fascinating subject. And I think to really get into Clearwater, we should do a little brief overview of what Scientology exactly is. And also, if I have any Scientologist fans out there, you know, sorry. So to quickly explain Scientology, it's a modern religion made by the science fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard. He conceived of this religion in the 1950s. The religion follows his teachings, which are laid out in his top-selling books, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. He's a science fiction writer, but also a lot of what Dianetics is it's just like a compilation of self-help books, kind of cherry-picking all kinds of things from different areas of self-help, you know, therapy and all kinds of stuff like that, and he kind of just put it into one big book, and then he threw a giant alien on it and volcanoes. Like, if you look at the book of Dianetics, it doesn't really correlate with what's inside. And a lot of people who started following the religion in like the 60s, well, they loved it. I mean, it's self-help practices that are actually practical, that actually help people. It's just when you get you're in a cult, the leader goes kind of crazy and, you know, he's running away from people in the ocean. We're going to get to that soon. It gets a little dicey. I think all things start with goodwill, except for L. Ron. I think he was just out for a quick payday. Essentially, they're a cult that brainwashes people to isolate themselves from their families and tries to use celebrity endorsements to encourage people to join them. Which, with any cult that you're in, the biggest thing with cult is that you separate entirely and then you almost depend on this new group of people to function and actually live. But the interesting thing about Scientology is that they have the celebrity endorsement aspect. The top one, of course, being Tom Cruise. That's pretty crazy, the Tom Cruise. And I mean, he is all in. There's no, you know, they pay him. No, this motherfucker is all in. So to have a cult that has such a prominent status in LA and people are so celebrity obsessed, it's pretty easy to understand how people could get sucked into this. There's also Danny Matheson from that 70s show. He's a good guy, right? Or Leah Remini. She was Kevin James's wife on King of Queens. And now her entire life is basically trying to expose Scientology. And I will say, too, just because we're listing off celebrities and stuff, if you are interested in Scientology and kind of understanding the weird ins and outs of it, there's a great Louis Theroux documentary that's very, very good. I love Louis Theroux. Shout out Louis Theroux. The church claims that there are millions of active church members, but estimates seem to think that there are less than 40,000 Scientologists worldwide. The church's influence comes from the estimated $3 billion in cash and assets it has collected from its followers. And Clearwater is the epicenter of that revenue stream. So, how did Clearwater come to be? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Scientology's start in Clearwater once again begins with L. Ron Hubbard. At the time, L. Ron Hubbard was overseeing religion from aboard a ship to avoid investigations into tax evasion and fraud when he selected Clearwater as the spiritual headquarters. So at the time, L. Ron Hubbard, he's literally living on the ocean. That's why they have a literal sect in their religion called the Sea Org. That's because of that. He was like, okay, we should get on a boat and go because we should go. Yeah, that sounds cool. And he even gave himself a captain's outfit, like a general's outfit. Unbelievable. I think it was towards the latter half of his life when he's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, all right? Even all the power and stuff like that, I think that maybe some drug use was happening. I don't know. Which, it met his criteria. It was a warm climate, it was near an international airport, and it had a hotel that could be repurposed into the Church of Scientology's main base of operations. Which, look at that. Really, honestly, it is a beautiful hotel. I would go. Well, the church comes in. They're just like, this town's kind of a little gross. All right, it's a little party town. We're going to clean it up. We got to introduce morals back into this party town. We need to bring morals back into town. Isn't that right, L. Ron Hubbard? Yes, that's correct. They deemed it the Project Normandy. The Church of Scientology devised a plan to take control over the city of Clearwater, which is kind of a f***ed up name to call that. Project Normandy. I'm pretty sure the Battle of Normandy Beach, Normandy Beach, and World War II is where people just got basically massacred, which the first step was was to purchase the Fort Harrison Hotel and establish it as their headquarters, which they dubbed as their flag land base. The next step was to fully investigate the Clearwater City and county area so that they could distinguish their friends from their enemies and handle as needed. The church had the members infiltrate local newspapers, community agencies, and law firms in order to spy on their enemies, which is really weird and creepy. And that's one thing you'll find with a lot of Scientologists is those motherfuckers snoop and they dig because their entire formula for success is fear-based blackmail. The idea that they just come in and they immediately start snooping, terrible new guest. One of their targets was the mayor of Clearwater, Gabe Cazares. He began to grow suspicious of the church's intent as they continued to buy up more real estate through their shell companies. Soon, Cazares became the church's biggest critic and called the group a terrorist group. Pretty funny. That you're not in good standing whenever the literal mayor of the town is just like, does anyone else see those group of monsters hanging out over there? And they're just like, what are we doing, Gabe? In an attempt to smear Gabe Cazares, the Scientologists tried staging a hit-and-run accident dubbed Speedy Gonzales. What? That is so racist, dude. Did they have a manila envelope that said Speedy Gonzales on it and falsely made allegations that the mayor had a second wife in Mexico, similarly dubbed Mayor Cazares Handling Project? There was also Project Taco Less, which again was another operation to ruin his career. Just racist campaign against this mayor. What's so weird is that it feels so juvenile. Speedy Gonzales. How about we name this one Project Taco Less? With every documentary I've ever seen or anything, Scientologists like to record people. Like if they see that you're recording something, they'll come out and they'll record people. And they're very childlike. If you're just like, why are you recording me? They'll be like, why are you recording me? And they'll like do the back and forth game or the mimic game. And you're just like, okay. It's funny that it carries through even into all the way down to the 70s. I wonder if there's something where they're just like, all right, well, if you do get infiltrated, we're going to act like babies. We're going to act like juvenile 8-year-olds. Rebecca, write that down. First level, always be racist. Goes up to a person, boop, boops on the nose. All right, now go off, Tiger. Both of these smear campaigns were unsuccessful, and Cazares and his wife sued the church for $1.5 million. Boom, love that. In 1986, the church ended up settling. Unfortunate. Today's video is sponsored by Factor. Are you looking to eat healthier, but you just simply don't have the goddamn time? Well, Factor is here for you. Factor is a subscription service that brings nutritious meals to your door. They are ready to eat right out of the packaging. All you need is 2 minutes to heat, eat, and enjoy. You know, during the week, it's hard to keep up with everything. All the rigmaroles, right? Your lady's barking at you. Your boyfriend's being a bum. It's terrible. And last thing you have to do is you have to go to a grocery store, wait in a line, you have to meal prep all because you want to eat good. That! Just get Factor. With over 35 meals to choose from each week, and specialty options like keto, calorie smart, and vegan, you're sure to find a dish that works for you. I like Factor because it's fast, it's flexible, and at any given time, I can change my orders up if I'm feeling a little, I want to try something new. I just get in, get out really quick. Factor's here to give us these back alley deals, and by God, I'm enjoying it. And here's the thing. You're always going to want good food, but when you're short on time or if life is just throwing these goddamn giant barrels at you, give Factor a try. No, seriously, do it. So head over to Factor75.com or click this link and use code PAPAMeat50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from these available flavors for every order while you are an active subscriber. Thank you, Factor, for partnering this video, and back to the video. These plans to take over the city were uncovered when the FBI raided the Scientology headquarters in Los Angeles and Washington. Documents showed that the United Churches of Florida was created as a front to protect church assets from seizure by the government. There was also Operation Freakout, which was a plan to get Paulette Cooper, a critic of the church, committed to a mental institution. There were also additional documents stating that Scientology had plans for complete world control. Imagine being an FBI agent, just United Churches of Florida. It's just them documenting everything that they're illegal they're doing in this front to protect all their assets, which is just a vault full of gold. They also claim they own a dragon. That can't possibly be true. Because of the raids, 11 church leaders were charged with conspiring to steal government documents, theft of government documents, and conspiring to obstruct justice. And even though plans to take over Clearwater were halted, this did not stop the church from continuing to buy as much property as they could. Over the next 4 decades after settling there, the church had amassed 58 properties in Clearwater under its name. 49 of them were downtown, and 73% of the property is tax exempt for religious purposes. And in the 1990s, Scientology magazine, one of the church's listed goals for 2000 was to, quote, make Clearwater known as the first Scientology city in the world. Bro is trying to become the Holy Roman Empire. But that's just the thing, is that their pockets are so deep, they're able to go in like McDonald's and buy up all these real estate options to where they probably control almost all of the downtown property, or at least a large portion of it. 49's a lot in any given city. Might not be New York levels, but we're talking about Clearwater, Florida here. All right, just want to put that out there. Which Clearwater campus is home to Flag, or flagship campus for Scientology. They put a lot of emphasis on it. It's like it's one of their bases, if not the base for all of their operations. And a lot of the things that they did in Clearwater too was they would train a lot of operatives there. People would move there, and they would usually work for free, and you would just sleep on a cot and eat beans. That's what it was like. And you're just like, we're like, la, 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 la. I'm so happy, and it hurts to put my hands in the ocean, but that's okay. Scientologists all around the world travel there, and it's designed to host established followers. Many important training courses take place here, so it makes sense why they are trying to isolate and take over the city. They want people to come on in who are already established. They don't have to worry about all the bullshit of doing the Thetan level things. You have to hold it, and people are just like, what the fuck is this? This is stupid. And they're like, no, it's really cool, actually. I'm going to leave. Please stay. No, I'm seriously going to go. And like, here goes another one. They want to have people who are already brainwashed, essentially. But when they go there, they're trying to have people flock to the city to make it look more legitimate and to, once again, seriously, like emulate this idea that this is like a big religious holy land kind of thing and get as much free labor as they possibly can. One of the main courses here is chief training for class 5 org staff, which is the highest level of staff. If you're class 5, that's when you're learning about Xenu. You know, you paid your dues. Because also another thing about Scientology is to level up, you have to pay. You have to put money into it. It isn't just about doing good work. I'm a good guy. Cool. Write us a check. It's the pyramid schemes of all pyramid schemes is kind of what it is. They're auditing for OT7, Truth Revealed. These are the ultimate secrets of Hubbard's teaching, which is about doomsday prophecies where Hubbard will come back from the dead in a messiah-like role to halt the enslavement of his followers. So they're apparently going to get enslaved somehow, but he is going to come back. You want to come back? This is the guy. Can he come back looking cooler? You know, the campus collects millions of dollars each week through fundraising and payments for expensive courses and high-level religious counseling not offered anywhere else. It is said that visitors are expected to stay in Scientology's hotels and eat at private church restaurants. If you're spending money at Clearwater, you're spending money at a Scientology thing. They will milk you dry. The upper levels of the Sea Org are also trained there, which the Sea Org is also trained in Clearwater. And to explain what Sea Org is exactly, is it's a division of the Church of Scientology. They're paramilitary organizations, which they don't really have any. It's like dress up. It's very, you know, it's pretend. Before establishing themselves in Clearwater, the Sea Org existed on a fleet of sea vessels because of the tax evasion. Their members signed billion-year contracts and work non-stop, and usually for free. And according to Scientology beliefs, members are expected to return to the Sea Org when they are reborn. That's a drag. Their motto is Revenimus, which of course translates to "We come back." That's creepy. That is so creepy. Revenomous! Defectors have claimed that they were paid less than $50 a week for their services. And the Sea Org members are also victims of human trafficking, which is a lot of fun. They're often brought from other countries, tempted to join by offering a legitimate way of entering the United States. You want to live in America? It's nice here. Ooh, you landed in Clearwater? Yikes. So after the 70s, they had to die down because the FBI came in and they found all their crayon drawings and all their applesauce cups and their spit bibs and stuff and their hard hats. And this was the next time that they really pushed on Clearwater, which Scientology's footprint expanded in the area, and so did Clearwater's beaches' popularity for tourists. Business downtown struggled to stay open, and city leaders spent millions of dollars improving the area. And in 2016, city consultants began planning a $64 million effort to reinvigorate the downtown waterfront. Then something happened. In the first 2 months of 2017, a handful of companies bought 6 commercial properties downtown for $26 million. It seems that the church had their own revitalization plan. And after a bid over an aquarium didn't go in their favor, the church had an explosion of purchases and non-church business owners were forced out. And let me tell you, with locals, it was war. The church doubled its footprint in less than 3 years. Business owners were offered cash with values 2 to 4 times the property's value. Most of these businesses didn't have buildings for sale, but they had to accept. The offer was strong, but also businesses for most of these places was bad since Clearwater had become a ghost town for tourists, and the locals knew not to come there. Years and years of the Sea Org being there, a lot of these weird Scientology people walking around scared all of the locals off and many of the tourists. Altogether, 32 companies bought 92 downtown properties since 2017, totaling in a cost of $103 million, and $99 million of that was paid in cash. Most of the buildings purchased have been left sitting empty and unused. Some of the shopfronts are just for show, and it evokes the feeling of fake town similar to North Korea and China, trying to evoke the same thing as like thinking that it's a prosperous town, trying to think that like, oh, business is going on here, but it looks like a set at Disney World. It has left Clearwater as mostly a ghost town. You might look into a store and it's just the uncanny effect that there's nothing behind there. It's almost like this is a stage play. Uniformed employees of Scientology's Sea Org walk the streets at all times of day and night. The Sea Org agents will follow and photograph anyone that is caught walking through the area. If you were even just in town, God forbid you didn't know anything about it and you were just walking through, how creepy is it that a uniformed person with a camera would just follow you? And not only one person, but probably multiple people would follow you with cameras, record you. They probably don't respond to you asking what's going on, and you are forced to leave, and you probably just feel like you're in danger the entire time that you're down there. So this is a snapshot taken from Google Maps. It's of a skywalk between two of the churches of Scientology, and it is reported that these skywalks were built to keep members of Sea Org from interacting with the public. So not only that, but even while they were probably buying up property, they were making these sky bridges. You could be walking there and then you just see people up in the windows and you'll never see them again. There's just so much more mystery behind the eyes of a stranger when you know that they're in a cult. We did find this case on Lisa McPherson, which is interesting. It's a woman from the 90s. This is just something horrific that was seen by the public in the town of Clearwater while things are going on, and this is what happened during that time. So in 1995, Lisa McPherson, a member of the church who was having a mental health crisis, was stripped naked in public, begging for help. She was eventually taken into custody by members of the church who forcibly removed her from state care. She was subjected to 17 days of auditing to cure her mental condition, and she later had died from a blood clot caused by severe dehydration. The church faced 2 felony charges, but they were later dropped after the medical examiner ruled the death as an accident. The Lisa McPherson thing is horrible, but it's not surprising, unfortunately, because the Scientology has a thing they call as quote-unquote fair game policy that allows for aggressive tactics against perceived enemies of the church. This has included stalking, harassment, and legal battles against former members and critics. They have all the deep pockets in the world. They have all of these empty-brained people walking around with cameras that are going to record you in public, and God forbid any of these people think that you're that much of a threat. You're going to get struck down in the street. And who would even see it? No one! Because it's a ghost town. It's a town run completely by these crazy people. Which, and this is just a fun little thing. Let's go back to Tom Cruise real quick. Tom Cruise owns a penthouse 2 blocks from the main church. A man posted a video of himself touring the penthouse while under construction, and the Church of Scientology demanded that he take it down. He was then stalked and followed by members of the church. Eventually, he found cameras planted in front of his house, and he decided to sell the property because of these events. Do you blame him? What's insane to think is that Clearwater, this is something that's still going on, and something that is in the United States. When you hear stuff from overseas, like North Korea, and you hear stuff that's like they have a fake town that makes it look like their country is prospering and people are really happy, you think that could never happen here on your home turf or in a place like America, maybe Florida. You could maybe expect it in Florida, of all places. It is insane to think that this is something that just is ongoing and exists, and that there are currently people who are brainwashed, living and giving all of their valuable human years to this organization that is just pumping them dry. There's really nothing more horrifying than something that is just so blatantly real and in your face, to have the monsters of the town be people who were once humans who are now just these soulless people walking around harassing and recording people and serving some kind of crazy mission that they believe to be true. It's frightening. I would love to go. I'd love to go and surf. I think, in my opinion, that this is the creepiest town in America. I'd be very curious if you guys have any other creepy towns that we can cover. Do you think this is the creepiest town or not? I don't know. Tell us other creepy towns. I'd love to figure out some stuff. Until next time, thank you so much for watching this video. And hey, don't join a cult. We'll see you next time.
And good night. Good night, folks.